And Mike,
Hi, Stu. I'm at,
both Mikes. Hi, Arthur. And it is, almost.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Arthur.
Hi, Arthur. It is now officially 7 o'clock, and we can begin. Tonight's the June 12th, 2024 Conservation Commission meeting. In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Sections 18 and 25, notice is hereby given of a meeting of the Peabody Conservation Commission. At this time, hearings will be held remotely. It will be allowed until March 20, I thought it was, March 2025. Public may participate in this meeting remotely. The meeting ID has been provided on the agenda and is posted on the city's website and outside City Hall. If members of the public wish to speak, there's a button at the bottom of the screen to raise your hand, and we can get going. We have the first thing up is a nomination committee. The vice chairman is the committee, and he's going to tell us who's nominated for officers next year.
Yeah, hey, everybody. I checked around with other commissioners, and looks like Stu is willing to stay on as chairman and myself as vice chairman. And I think Mike Vivaldi is looking to stay on as secretary. We have two new commissioners, so maybe our next election, maybe one of the other new commissioners may want to step up and fill in one of the positions, but something to think about. Would be nice if we could rotate the offices from year to year, so everybody gets a chance to run a meeting and take on the role of one of the officers. So, but for this year, I guess we'll, if it's okay with everybody, we could, the slate would be Stu Lazarus for chairman, myself, Michael Rizzo for vice chairman, and for secretary, Michael Vivaldi.
Congratulations, everybody.
Do we have a motion to accept?
Move to accept.
Second.
Second.
All right, that motion was made by Mr. Athas, seconded by Mr. Comack. Roll call, Chairman Lazarus.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Rizzo.
Yes.
Secretary Vivaldi,
Yes.
Commissioner Comack,
Yes.
and Commissioner Athos.
Yes.
All right, and Stu, are we having the alternates vote tonight on some items that they can, or are we gonna hold off until next meeting?
We have,
We do have a
There's-
quorum without the alternates.
right,
I'm not sure, they were here last meeting, so I guess they could vote on this. I'm just not sure what to do.
I think they should vote on, as part of, if there's less than 7, they should be, one or all should be both be participating.
I would agree with that.
All right, Commissioner
Okay.
Cassidy
Yes, yes.
and Commissioner Hara.
Yes.
All right, so that passes 7-0.
okay, thank you. First thing up, or the next thing up, extension requests. Request for an extension permit on DEP file number 55829. Request is being made by Solitude on behalf of Cedar Pond Village Condo. It's an aquatic maintenance and ecological restoration at water bodies located at the condominium complex. The order expires August 17, 2023. Is anybody here from Solitude or the condo management?
I do see someone named Tanner Poole in the audience from Solitude, and I've been trying to, they should be coming as a panelist, hopefully. It just takes a little bit of time for them to accept. So someone named Tanner should be showing up soon.
Okay, I guess we can extend the,
Well, hold on, why don't you, I don't know why they're not,
I don't know,
okay, it says you should really,
there it
it's
is.
up to them to talk and speak their case.
I see Tanner, unmute yourself, please. There you are.
There we go. Sorry, I was having trouble
Oh.
with the computer. It wasn't connecting through.
Working now.
It's working now.
You want to tell us
So-
about what you're doing?
Yeah, I can. So at Cedar Pond Village, we've been working there since 2016. It's kind of a part of our annual maintenance program. So we go there for them, and we go there start of June, and we kind of just work. We go visit twice a month, and up until September. And pretty much the annual management program that just entails like a initial survey on our first visit, and then we continue to monitor the pond for kind of like beneficial plant growth. And we just monitor plant growth and algae growth until it becomes a nuisance level, and then at that point we may treat, but treatment only occurs maybe like 1 to 3 times a year. But mainly it's the normal collection of pond weeds and algae that we look for out there. And yeah, wrap that up pretty much. We're not looking to change anything that we're doing. We have a comfortable like program of just managing it, making sure it stays at good levels, and we just like to continue doing that.
So it's very similar to what you're doing for the city,
Pretty
for
much.
the recreational ponds. All right. I guess we can extend the program for anywhere from 1 to 3 years. Does anybody have any questions or comments from the commission?
Well, through the chair, normally we extend for 1 year. Although, even though we could extend for more than 1 year, maybe for a project of this type where it's a, annual cleaning and not, it's kind of pretty repetitive, and it's the same thing every year. I guess, I don't want to do that for everybody, but I think for a project like this, we could do 3 years, but it's up to the rest. I don't know how the rest of the board feels.
Anybody else?
Through the chair, I absolutely think, I mean, they seem to, they have to come every year.
Yeah,
Nothing's really changed and they're just doing maintenance work. I don't really see the point.
yeah,
I think,
that's how I.
I think every 3 years is fine.
So I move to extend the extension permit for a total of 3 years.
There a second?
I'll second that.
Roll
All right,
call.
that motion to extend 3 years from the expiration date made by Mr. Athos, seconded by Mr. Rizzo. Roll call. Chairman Lazares,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Rizzo,
Yes,
Secretary Vivaldi,
Yes,
Commissioner Comac,
Yes,
Commissioner Athos,
Yes,
Commissioner Cassidy,
Yes.
and Commissioner Harrop.
Yes.
All right, so that passes unanimously 7-0.
Okay. I have a question for Tanner that applies to this extension request as well as the next item on the agenda. Are there monthly reports that you guys send in? And who do you send them to?
So I believe we kind of on our when they have like a tech stop by, he kind of documents everything that they see or what they may do, and that report gets sent to the client.
So the client gets the reports. Okay. Go on item 2, request for extension permit on DEP file 56839. The request is being made by Solitude on behalf of Huntington Woods Condominium. Project is an aquatic maintenance and ecological restoration at water bodies located at the condominium complex. This order expires August 22 of 2023, so it must have expired already. Any comments? The same thing, Tanner?
In a way, we visit a lot less. We go for one survey at the beginning of early summer, kind of like May, June, kind of like right around now. We'll do mainly one treatment for their pond weeds, which has mainly been like bladderwort or milfoil. And then we go back possibly for a follow-up for their lilies if it's just too much around their fountains, just to like give their fountains enough area around to not like suck up a lily and choke out their fountain. And then we come back and do a post survey in the early fall. So maybe 3 visits there.
And again, the client gets the reports,
Yep.
right?
through the chair, I would support a 3-year extension on this project too, but I didn't bring it up on the previous one, but if you file a report every year, do we get a copy of that?
Yeah, we can definitely include you guys in the copy. We could so
So,
like at
you
the end of
know-
the year when we do the year-end report or
Right.
the final survey, we'll do a year-end report and we can include
Right,
you guys
even
on
though
that.
we don't have to come back, even though you don't have to come back to request an extension, it'd be nice to report to us and just let us know how the year went and send us the report and keeps us in the loop.
There's,
That works for me.
there's a report from January of this year for last year.
Yes.
Is there an annual report for 2023?
Let me check. I don't
So we can get a copy of
think
that
the
as
hundreds
well.
of woods.
Okay.
Okay.
Anybody else in the commission?
So there's a motion on the table for extension for 3 years.
Second? Come
second,
on, Jamie, make a second.
All right, that motion to extend for 3 years was made by Mr. Rizzo, seconded by Mr. Comac. Roll call. Chairman Lazares,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Rizzo,
Yes,
Secretary Vivaldi,
yes,
Commissioner Comac,
yes,
Commissioner Athos,
yes,
Commissioner Cassidy,
Yes.
and Commissioner Harrop.
Yes.
All right, so that passes 7-0, and there is a typo on the agenda. They didn't expire in 2023. They expired in 2024. So they haven't both. Neither of these have expired yet. So that is just sorry. I do too many things at once at work. So sorry.
That's okay. These don't cause any kind of conflicts. It's fine. Next items are certificates of compliance. Continued request for a full certificate of compliance is made by attorney David Ankleys for Annabelle Farinan, DEP file number 55340. Project was additional paving services to a pre-existing residential structure since converted to commercial use. The address is known as 1 Mount Pleasant Drive, map 29, lot 007, Peabody, Mass. The order of conditions don't expire. They did expire on 6/3/1996. Is somebody here for that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, David Ankleys here. I believe we completed all of the work necessary to be done. I think we've, I believe the property has been inspected a couple of times. Both Attorney Bob or retired Judge Bob Cornetta for the current landowner has sent in pictures, and I sent in some beautiful pictures to Lucia last night, including a couple of pictures, including rabbits eating the grass that's been growing together with the weeds that have come up with it. So I think we've done everything that needs to be done, and I'd request that the certificates be issued. I think we had the certificate on the first matter, and I think we're waiting for the certificate on the second matter. That's pretty much it, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody on the commission?
I visited the site. It looked good. I think everything's been done as requested.
The
I
as-built- the as-built
I had a
submitted?
question. What's that?
The as-built has been submitted and
Yeah, I just had a question on the signing. I think the job came out really nice. And so there's two granite posts at either end, and there's intermediate sign on the fence. And so everything's been done. The only question I had was the sign didn't say anything about storage or dumping of snow. It just notifies that it's a conservation area, and any work outside that, they need to come to us, and not that exact words, but something like that. And I'm wondering how understanding that is for the guys in the wintertime with snow plows, that they know they can't dump snow on the other side of the fence. I was wondering if maybe we just not to create more work, but just if we could just have some other supplemental fence that might be, you can stick on the fence that just says no storage or dumping of snow.
Sure, we could do that. There's no problem doing that. That's an easy thing to do. The fence, my understanding is the fence would, or my thought is that the fence would prevent people from plowing snow onto the area that has been defined or seeded and stuff. But we can put a sign that says no snow storage, no dumping or snow storage. That's not a difficult thing.
Okay,
Be
that'd be
happy.
good. Yeah, I'd be
Anybody?
happy. I think that would finish it off nicely.
Yeah, we'd be happy to do that. Not a problem.
Anybody else? Can I get a motion then for a full certificate?
I'll make a motion to issue a full certificate of compliance for 1 Mount Pleasant Street.
I second.
Okay, thank you. Just like to point out that there's an emergency order should not be withdrawn until after all the grass is growing in, unless you feel that it has grown in. But I'd like to see the erosion controls removed. Once we approve this, if the grass is grown in, we can remove the erosion controls, correct?
I would talk about the enforcement order second, because we're in the middle of a motion right now. So
Okay.
I would take the
right.
enforcement order next and we can talk about that. So right now I have a motion for a full certificate of compliance made by Mr. Rizzo, seconded by Ms. Harrop. Did you guys want to add the conditions of
The
that the
signs.
fence, the granite post, and the sign all must remain in perpetuity and to be held until the snow storage sign is installed? And I just need a little clarification on, do you guys want the snow storage sign? Do you want two signs on two metal poles? So that they're a little bit higher for drivers to see. I'm just not sure if a snowplow could see them on the fence.
Yeah,
But if
that'd be
you
a good
if you
idea.
think, I mean, I don't know, I've never really driven a, I mean, I have driven a plow with people, but I've never really paid attention to the signs. So I'm just
Yeah.
trying to think of what would be,
If we had a traffic sign, that's usually the traffic signs, they come on a steel P5 post, they call it. And that just gets hammered in. It's got a little wedge on it, so it just gets banged in. And usually the sign is probably like 8 by 10 in height. It's a standard traffic sign. It's usually aluminum panel with nomenclature that could say no dumping or storage of snow beyond this point, or something to that effect.
and Dave, if I would say before you get them fabricated, maybe just send me over like what you guys are planning to print before it goes to print. And do you just want one sign right in the middle? It's not that huge of space. I don't know, what do you guys think? One sign, two sign on metal
Yeah,
posts?
It's not that big a site. I think one sign should be sufficient.
Just make sure it's out of the way of where they push snow, so that way it doesn't get taken out too.
Right, and they could, it could be put on the other side of the post and rail fence. So on the wetland side of it, just behind it, so it's not gonna get hit by any cars or anything like that. It's beyond, it's safe. Won't get knocked over. They'd have to knock the fence down to knock that over. And it'll be mounted high enough, so somebody with a plow, if they're picking up snow, if there's a big storm and they got a front end loader to take snow off site, they know not to dump it there because the sign would be visible.
All right, so Dave, are you okay with that, Attorney Inkleys?
Pardon me?
Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I think the best thing to do is to take like a typical traffic sign and put it on one of those steel posts with the wedge as described by the vice chairman, and put it right in the middle behind the post and rail fence, so that there won't be an ability to push any snow beyond the fence.
All right, so I'm just gonna finish doing that roll call. So the motion is a full certificate of compliance on DEP file number 55-340. That was made by Mr. Rizzo, seconded by Ms. Harrop, with the conditions that the fence, the granite posts, and the conservation signs all remain in perpetuity, holding the certificate of compliance until one traffic sign with wordings to state no snow storage to be approved before it's fabricated. So I'm gonna go ahead and hold it, Dave, until we confirm that the sign is installed. And now I'm gonna go ahead and roll call. Chairman Lazaris,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Rizzo,
Yes,
Secretary Vivaldi,
Yes.
Commissioner Comack,
Yes,
Commissioner Athos,
Yes,
Commissioner Cassidy,
Yes.
and Commissioner Harrop.
Yes.
All right, so that passes 7-0. And then I would take the I would suggest taking the enforcement order out of order, because I think we could talk about that quickly.
mhm.
Okay. Are we gonna wait until all the grass is grown in, or is it grown in sufficiently now to remove the emergency order and the erosion controls?
When I was out there a couple or 3 weeks ago, and it looked it looked really good. So I don't know how it looks now, if it's being watered. I don't know the condition of the grass now, but it was certainly nice when I seen it, so. Has anybody, been out there recently? We've had plenty of rain, so I would imagine that, the grass has probably come in pretty well.
May I,
Go ahead. There are pictures on the OneDrive and Dave can speak to those.
I sent in 3 pictures that were taken last night. I think the grass is filled in fairly well. I might comment that the erosion control has prevented some of the plants that would normally grow in this area from spreading out onto the area where the grass was planted. And that might be something that the commission would want to see happening. So I think the removal of the erosion control at this point in time would help the greening of the area. But whatever you want to do is fine with me. I think it's filled in nicely.
Anybody else? Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to lift the enforcement order and, and I'm just wondering whether we should leave the, wattles in for a little while, but I think everything's looking good.
I would suggest through the chair, sorry, I would suggest leaving the wattles in, especially because I mean, I know it's going to be a very minor digging to put that sign in, but I think that they're not doing any harm right now. And then in a couple months, me and Dave will, I can go back out there and then we can get them out of there. I think for right now, they might, because there could be some scouring because it's still a little patchy out there. So if we get like
Yeah, yeah.
a hard rain, I think there could be some scouring into there.
I'd support that.
Do I hear a motion then?
Yeah, the motion to issue the enforcement order. And that the,
And
erosion
leave the
controls
erosion.
can remain in place for now, and as things develop and it fills in nicely, we can remove them, later on, maybe in the fall or something like that.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Roll call.
Okay, I believe that order was to withdraw the enforcement order for One Mount Pleasant. That was made by Mr. Rizzo, second by Mr. Cassidy. Roll call, Chairman Lazares,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Rizzo,
Yes,
Secretary Vivaldi,
Yes.
Commissioner Comack,
Yes,
Commissioner Athos,
Yes.
Commissioner Cassidy,
Yes.
and Commissioner Harrop.
Yes.
All right, so that is 7-0. So Dave, you understand, leave the erosion controls down until me and you communicate. Leave the erosion controls down until me and you have a discussion about removing them.
Sure,
Great.
not a problem, not a problem. Yeah. Okay. I'll try to put together a copy of what we're going to put on the sign. I think it's going to read, no snow dumping, no storage beyond this point.
Yep.
Something of that nature. Is that okay?
yes,
No dumping, no snow storage, no dumping beyond this point.
yes.
Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 4. Has this been continued? Lucia?
Number 4, they haven't given us anything, so yeah, I guess he hasn't asked for continuance, but I'm assuming I asked him for an as-built plan and then he stopped coming to the meeting. So I don't know. He didn't ask for a continuance, so I would continue it for now and leave it on the agenda so that it's on my radar and that I don't miss sight of it. I can put it like way at the end of the agenda going forward.
Okay.
Do we need a motion to continue then?
if you want to continue it.
I'll make that motion then. Motion to continue.
Second,
I'll second.
All right, that motion was made by Mr. Rizzo, seconded by Mr. Cassidy. Roll call, Chairman Lazares,
yes.
Vice Chairman Rizzo,
Yes.
Secretary Vivaldi,
Yes.
Commissioner Comac,
Yes.
Commissioner Athos,
yes,
Commissioner Cassidy,
Yes.
and Commissioner Harrop.
Yes.
All right, so that passes 7-0.
All right, moving on to notice of intents. Continued public hearing on a notice of intent submitted by Goddard Consulting LLC, Tom Schutz, for trustee of 18 Carroll Road nominee trust, Gilbert Alexio Fijo. The proposed work is the construction of an extension to Carroll Road with associated grading to be used as snow storage area, turnaround, and driveway for a single-family house within the buffer zone of a BVW. Property is known as 18 Carroll Road, so lot 74N, Peabody, Mass. Is
Through the
somebody here?
chair, yep, through the chair, I received an email, or not an email, a letter from Attorney Kelty asking for this to be continued. The reason being is, I guess this does need to go back to planning board. Remember, like 7 months ago, we talked about that might need to go back to planning board. So it sounds like it does need to go back to planning board. The plans have been revised a bit. So as far as I know, this is getting continued because I have a letter from the attorney saying to continue it, and that, from what I gathered from the applicant, is that, and from talking to Andrew Levin and the planning department, is that it is going to go back to the planning department, and then they'll approve it, and we'll come back to this in July.
Okay.
Okay. There was a site visit this week or last Saturday, I think. Councilor Higgins was there. He held it with various members of the community. And my only suggestion was that he continue to work with DPS, Department of Public Services, to put in drain lines, because there's no storm drains up in that area. And he's acknowledged that he would continue to work with the mayor and Department of Public Services to do that. I don't have any other information to add to this, so we're just going to continue this. I need a motion to continue.
move to continue,
Second,
Second.
Second.
roll call.
I think I heard Arthur make the motion and Mike second it. Is that correct?
I
Yeah.
was on mute, actually.
it was a tie.
I thought I heard Arthur and then Mike Rizzo.
Yeah, well, Bruce did too, so I'll put Bruce down.
Okay. And just so you know, there is someone with their hand raised. So once we do the roll call, I'm just gonna unmute them. It is a resident and they might have a question. So I don't want to like leave her hanging. So Diane, hold tight. I'm just gonna do this roll call. So that motion was made by Mr. Athos, seconded by Mr. Colmack. Roll call, Chairman Lazares,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Rizzo,
Yes.
Secretary Vivaldi,
Yes.
Commissioner Comack,
Yes.
Commissioner Athos,
Yes,
Commissioner Cassidy,
Yes.
and Commissioner Harrop.
Yes.
All right, so that is continued to the July 31st meeting, 7-0. And I'm gonna go ahead and unmute Diane, so just hold tight before you move on, Stu.
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Diane Dyer from 11 Corral Road. And with me today are neighbors from 13 Corral Road. We met on Saturday with Michael Higgins, our board representative. And then a gentleman from Huntington Wood, I know his first name's Stanley. So it was kind of a nice site review and a discussion about the drainage issue that's up there. And the continuance, we were all for that, so we can continue to learn more about the project. We just wanted you to know we're here paying attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
On to item 6, correct?
I hate to interrupt you, but item 6, 24.5 North Central Street, the wetland scientist told me that if I don't see him in the audience to skip it, and I
Leaving the
do not
webinar.
see Bill Manuel. So, we would have to skip this and come back to this. So people in the audience don't leave. He's just at another meeting right now, and as soon as I see him, we will bump it. So I would not read number 6 and jump to number 7 and get the
Thank
bike
you.
path.
Thank you. Number 7, continued public hearing on a notice of intent submitted by Green International Affiliates, Inc., Daniel Spicer for the city of Peabody, Brendan Callahan, Assistant Director, and project proposes to extend the existing Independence Greenway from its eastern terminus at Essex Center Drive to Endicott Street for a total project length of approximately 1.3 miles. The work area is located along a former railroad right-of-way, and the property is known as former B&M Baltimore and Maine Railroad Easement, North Shore Road, Essex Center Drive, Endicott Street, and any other name you want to throw in there. Map is not available. It is, and a lot number is not available. Take it away, Brenda.
Brenda,
All right.
did you want to say anything, or
Diane,
did you want me to
Danielle,
jump in?
go ahead.
I'll go ahead. Sorry. Thank you, Commission members. Danielle Spicer from Green International Affiliates. We met last month to open this project, to bring it forward to you. What I'd like to do tonight is just summarize what has changed basically since we last talked a month ago. We were basically, I know you guys were waiting on DEP comments with regard to the MEPA filing, because there are several permits for this. DEP did submit written comments to MEPA on May 17th. We were able to take those and respond back to them on May 22nd. We did forward responses, I think, to the commission, to Lucia, who I think forwarded those to the commission. But there were still some outstanding items that DEP had concerns of. So we were actually able to have a meeting on June 3rd with DOT, with members from the city, with us, and DEP from both the Northeast Regional Office and the Highway Department, as well as EEA. So it was a very productive meeting that we were able to actually get an understanding of what DEP was still concerned with. They basically had 4 items that they narrowed it down that they still wanted us to respond to. And shortly after that meeting, we have a water quality certificate that was submitted with DEP. DEP issued what they typically do is a technical deficiency letter with the WQC that basically summarized all of those 4 points. In addition to, there's one other that's a little bit outside of it that I will talk about. So what we have done since then, we received that letter on June 5th. So we have been very actively trying to address all of DEP's comments and concerns. So I know we had submitted some stuff yesterday. It's been a little bit late and not giving you too much time to review, but I wanted to just go over the changes that have basically happened, because they really haven't been too significant, but they have been solely to address DEP's comments. So with those changes, the first thing that, and actually this wasn't even in the technical deficiency letter, but it was something that was brought up that we had noted, was the wetland replication. They were not thrilled with the area where it was, and I think we even mentioned this last month. We were looking to move it into a more appropriate area. So we submitted a week ago to the Conservation Commission an updated wetland replication area that's still on city-owned property. The size is the same. It will have a small temporary access road that will get to it, that will just use timber matting to it. We don't have any tree removal associated with the access road. There's, I think, 1 or 2 trees that will be removed as part of the wetland replication, but the majority of it, we are actually able to keep the existing trees within the area. So it aligns much more with regard to the performance standards of the Wetlands Protection Act. It doesn't have that finger-like projection, and it's not immediately adjacent to a concrete pool. So that was one of the big things. And DP has not had given us any issues or any concerns with the revised wetland replication area. The other items that they brought up were, the biggest one was the potential for reducing the riprap at the 2 main culverts. This still was a concern of them, and just really trying to minimize it, and also just any exposed riprap along there. So we went back, and as I had mentioned previously, the culverts are designed using federal highway requirements with regard to scour and erosion. And so we're dictated some on that, but we were able to tweak culvert 1, which has the largest amount of riprap that's being shown, and actually reduce it in 2 ways. One, we did revise throughout the project. We changed the dump riprap to a regular riprap that went from a 400-pound stone to a 500-pound stone. And what this is it's a more interlocking laid stone that can provide a little bit better of the erosion control. So we were able to, on the culvert 1, also look at potentially reducing that riprap by actually about 2,000 square feet. Now that impact at culvert 1 is located within land underwater, because the majority of the riprap is within the Proctor Brook. But we did reduce those impacts, and just by reducing those impacts, we had about 30 linear feet of bank reduction as well for those impacts. So that was the main change at culvert 1. And we looked at culvert 2, but that is just really designed. It actually doesn't have as much riprap as culvert 1. So that one was, unfortunately, it really is at the maximum, the minimal limits that we have. We really aren't able to minimize that. As was mentioned previously, there is significant scour and erosion that's happening at those culverts. One of them had previously washed away. So we really want to make sure we're setting these culverts up to do well and not to have issues in the future. The other thing we added, though, with regard to this, was they had concern with the exposed riprap along the slope. So while we had already noted using vegetated stakes within the riprap, we have added and revised that detail to actually also add compost soil over that, where it's along the side slope. So it really, at the end of the day, you're not going to see the riprap. Any of the riprap within the channel is already buried under 12 inches of natural stream bottom. And then at the side slopes, we'll have the vegetated stakes along with the compost filter. So that was an additional detail that we did revise on the plans from last month. The other question that was also asked from DEP was regarding the boardwalk with over Proctor Brook, and could that potentially, is there an issue with the helical piles within the floodway, and is there any concerns? And could we look at a larger span bridge, or and along those impacts? So we have provided more clarification that there was a hydraulic study that was done that shows that the helical piles that will be placed, just so you know, those helical piles are 2 inches in diameter. So they're very small. They're 8 feet on center. They will not result in any rise in the base flood elevation with regard to Proctor Brook. Now, that is a FEMA studied floodway, so that was something we needed to make sure absolutely didn't result in that change. So, and that report was submitted to both DEP and MEPA agencies. In addition, it was noted that if we were to look at a span bridge, a larger span bridge, and actually have nothing within Proctor Brook, there is to the right of that area. And actually, as I'm talking, I'm realizing, I don't know if you guys have the plans in front of you, but would it be helpful if I share the plans? Just so you know, let me see if I can, so you know where I'm talking. I'm gonna go to, these are the original NOI figures that were included. And I will share my screen.
While Danielle's setting up the plans, just, I have been on from the beginning. I was in the car for a while. I was sorry, I apologize. It didn't seem like I was here. I was coming from our master plan meeting at Higgins Middle School and trying to get home in time to jump on a computer, but I tried to talk when I was in the car, but it didn't seem to work. But I haven't been here from the beginning.
Sure, thank you, Brandon. Okay, so you can see this was the plan we originally showed a month ago. This is where the boardwalk is. This whole area in purple is all a wetland. So if we were to do a full span bridge that went from the western abutment all the way over to, and spanned over Proctor Brook, you would then have a very large abutment in the middle of the wetland. We would have significant increase in not only wetlands, but we would have additional filling within the floodplain that would need to be compensated. So the analysis that was done demonstrated that the boardwalk has significantly less impact to the wetland resource areas within this area, and doesn't have doesn't result in a rise in the base flood elevation. In addition, the last thing that they brought up was just the concern of potentially the helical piles capturing debris and stuff like that. And I think the one thing to keep in mind is really this area right here for Proctor Brook is right upstream of it, just a couple hundred feet. You've got two other culverts that are much more constraining than this wide open section of Proctor Brook where the boardwalk is. So there's very little very little linear footage of Proctor Brook where debris could potentially be captured within this area. So we felt that was a much more appropriate design with the least amount of impacts with regard to this last portion of the area. So that was in our response letter to DEP that we submitted yesterday with regard to that. The third item that they had talked about was just asking with regard to stormwater, if any additional stormwater components could be done within the area. I think what they didn't understand, they were asking, could like some crushed stone filter strips or anything like that be added along this? I think what they didn't understand is the actual pathway it's a 10-foot wide paved pathway, but the shoulders are 2 foot wide and they're actually stone dust. So they're stone dust over an 8-inch gravel base. So those actually are pervious and will provide some infiltration. We don't take credit for it. They don't meet the standards with regard to recharge and stuff like that, but they are permeable. They absolutely will help infiltrate, and they're all along the entire pathway. So as and it's a sheet flow condition. So as runoff sheet flows, there will be some infiltration with regard to the pathway within these. So I think once we were explaining that seemed to appease them better with regard to meeting the stormwater. And really, there just isn't any other area within within this corridor just because of the site constraints of Proctor Brook. The only other item that DEP brought up that wasn't during the meeting, but it was in their letter, was we had a proposed paved waterway that they just asked us to convert to stone. A very small change. We changed that. So that was one of the plan changes in there. And then the last thing, that this wasn't a water quality certificate issue. It was more of just, it was brought up in the meeting on June 3rd that I just wanted to bring up here was they had asked with regard to the compensatory flood storage, could it be looked at? We looked at doing wetland replication offsite. Could compensatory flood storage also be done offsite on town-owned land? We did look at that, but unfortunately, the elevations, and what they're getting at is the foot by foot elevations with regard to compensation. The elevations of the town land where it's adjacent to the floodplain for Proctor Brook are at a much higher elevation. So it doesn't even match the elevations that we're filling. So it just wouldn't be feasible. The one thing I just wanted to bring up with regard to compensation is we did clarify that one, the project as a net whole has a net cut of 490 cubic feet. But also, if you look at the incremental cut and fill at each elevation, the whole western side of the project that's in the upper area is actually all a net cut for almost the first 7 feet. And then the middle is where we have the fill, and then there's the net cut at the end, which is where we have the compensatory flood storage. So both upstream and downstream of the project, we actually are cutting and providing that compensatory flood storage. It's really just the fill. So when you look at this as a whole, there should be no impact with regard to upstream or downstream flooding from this project. So along with that, we submitted updated plans. Actually, I'll start first with the figures. So there were 3 figures that were updated from our original notice of intent submission. This figure 6A was updated, and the only thing it was updated for was just the impact table, just to show the reduction. We reduced land under water permanent impacts by about 2,000 square feet, and we reduced bank impacts by about 30 linear feet. So that's what this table is showing, just a small reduction of that. The wetland replication area, which was previously up in this corner, has now been removed and is now shown in the offsite wetland replication area parcel that we talked about. And then this is just showing the reduced impact. So you can see this dashed red line here showed the original extent of riprap at this culvert 1 that we were able to bring back and bring it closer to here with regard to the riprap for culvert number 1. So along with those changes, these are the 3 main figures that really highlight everything that I talked about. There were 13 plans. These are the plans that we've just clouded, and basically I can go through them, but they basically just show in detail what I just described. So I guess with that, I'd like to just open it up to questions that the commission might have.
I have a question. What is the boardwalk material going to be?
It's going to be a timber boardwalk.
It will be timber.
Yes.
No possibility of using a recycled, something that doesn't rot, crack, split, requires no maintenance.
Believe that wasn't used because of slipping.
It wasn't viewed.
I believe that material was like looked at some point. But if it gets wet, people can slip and fall and hurt themselves.
What are they doing out in the rain? Walk on anyway. Okay. So it will be wood, and it'll be the same as every other boardwalk and the bike path, correct?
I'm not sure if it's the same as every other bike path.
I don't think there's any. Is there any wood on any of the other bike paths? I don't believe there is.
Yeah, there's wood. There's like over by where I live, the bike path from Crystal Drive. As it crosses over wetlands, it's wood.
I'm not familiar with that section.
Okay, it's not important. Okay, I think you've done an excellent job of explaining, Danielle. Thank you. Anybody else in the commission have a question?
Oh, I'm good.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
The presenter that you said is Danielle.
Yes.
You explained riprap would be underwater. You were explaining some early in the presentation or discussion. You were mentioning that idea. Could you elaborate about that? Why that would occur?
Sure. So basically, and I'll just go to this culvert. This is the biggest culvert in the project. So you can see what's shaded here in the pink/magenta color is the limits of the riprap. So that riprap is basically being placed for scour and erosion protection. So currently what's happening is there's a significant amount of velocity that's going through there, enough to cause erosion and scour around the area. So what will happen is we will place the riprap and within those areas, but we will also place it down enough to put 12 inches of natural stream bed material over it. So at the end of the day, you're not going to see the riprap. It's going to be there for the scour protection. You're just going to see the natural stream bed material. And that's mainly to allow for more natural habitat and everything to continue to flow through Proctor Brook in a more natural condition.
And so being only in extreme dry areas would it be exposed, but so then in most times it will be underwater. So does that obviously still prevents the scouring and the erosion?
Yes, you may have some, I mean, if you get a really big storm, you may have some of that natural material move downstream, but the whole point is to have that riprap under there so it doesn't continue to take any of the rest of the culvert or anything else like that, or the area doesn't continue to erode or scour that away. And then over time that will fill back in.
Thank you for that explanation.
Sure.
Anybody else?
So remind me, are we continuing this, or are we going to vote on this tonight, or this is being discussed?
No, I think we have to continue this.
We're definitely seeking a vote tonight. We've met with DEP, we've presented these changes to DEP. We really are hoping to get a vote tonight. We think that we've addressed DEP's comments. Like I said, they had a long list of comments, about a month ago, and they whittled them down to about 4 comments. These comments and then everything you're seeing in front of you tonight is what was discussed with DEP, and that that they know that this is what we're presenting to DEP as well as yourselves. We're definitely hoping for a vote tonight.
Okay, so with regard to the response letter back to DEP you sent today then, yesterday?
Yesterday, yeah.
Yesterday, so, but you haven't heard back from them, but you don't anticipate any issues with your letter and them responding?
Correct, we believe we've addressed their concerns, we've updated the plans. They have, a certain time period, 30 days to respond, and we will to let us know about the water quality certificate.
Okay.
Question.
You could just send us a copy of that once you get the.
Yeah, once we get the WQC, I think the Concom is automatically CC'd, but if not, we will absolutely send you a copy of the water quality certificate anyways.
And if there's any response, or if there's a response at all regarding your letter that you sent yesterday?
Sure. So what would happen is if DEP did have additional comments, if those comments resulted in any changes, I mean, first of all, any responses we can absolutely CC the commission, but if those changes, if their questions resulted in any changes to the plans or anything, we would have to give you updated plans anyway. So it's not as if you wouldn't see or be aware if there were changes that DEP requested that you guys wouldn't see that. We would absolutely have to come back and show you those.
Okay. Based on that, then I'm certainly willing to move forward.
Before we make a
I
motion.
was ready the last meeting, so I was ready at the last meeting, so I'm certainly okay with moving this along. I don't have a list of conditions readily available, but I'm certainly, we get about 30 days to issue our conditions. So maybe, yeah, because it's a big project, so I haven't had a chance to go through all the conditions, but I don't see a problem.
Before we take a motion, before we make a motion, this is a public hearing and it is open to the public, I believe. Is there anybody in the public that wishes to speak? And I don't see any hands raised. Lucia, do you?
I do not see any hands raised, but I would suggest if you guys are gonna make a motion for an order of conditions that you know what conditions you're gonna add. Cause once this meeting's over, I have 21 days to draft it and I need to know those conditions. I
Right.
don't have any special conditions. Maybe take a look at Bob Langley's memo and see if he has any conditions.
I don't believe Bob had any, he didn't have any conditions
Yeah.
from what I read in the memo.
Yeah.
So maybe,
do we want to close the public hearing at this time?
No, just, I would say leave it open until we vote.
Well,
no, you have to close the hearing before you vote.
Yes, eventually, yes, but if we're not voting and making conditions, then why not just leave it open?
I agree with that. Do we want to,
You know,
No, I
this is
think,
definitely,
no,
we're
I think
definitely
we,
hoping to get a vote tonight. You know,
Yeah,
we're
I think
definitely
we should
getting
give-
underneath a significant crunch time with regards to this project and the schedule and getting this advertised this fiscal year, being the
I know, I
federal
would-
fiscal year.
I would move to close the public hearing, but maybe not write or give you all the conditions tonight. Maybe I can look at them and Lucia can look at them. We can come up with something maybe before the end of the week.
Will the conditions be any different than what we
Not
use?
really.
0 through 50, those numbers, and then adding anything presented in a memo from a city department? I don't know, Lucia.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing is that if this has compensatory flood storage, there's you know, a generic condition that says that that needs to get done, you know, in the beginning of the stages of, and like obviously you're not going to give them certificate of compliance unless that's done. So
Right.
there is some condition in our generic in those the checklist. It should say something about I ran out of the office today and I did not grab that book. If you want me to start thinking of conditions right now, hold on. I mean, but I think that's
have
the
my
most
book.
important one because everything
book.
else is, I mean, I'm going to be working with Brendan on this. It's not like
Yeah.
he's, you know, it's the city's doing the work. So I'm going to be like the whole way. And we already have the 1 through 50, which is a lot of conditions. And all of the conditions that DEP is going to put on this through like the water quality permit and all the other permits, like the 2 other permits. There's 3 permits, right? There's the chapter 91.
No, there's actually no chapter 91 in this.
Okay,
So
it's just the 404, the 401, and the order of conditions, and
yes,
one
and
more.
there's 2 for 401s. There's a dredging and a fill. That's all. And then just, you know, we also have a MIPA. So we have MIPA certificate. It doesn't give you permit conditions. It's just a certificate at the end of the project.
Yeah.
So I think the most important one would be that condition about the compensatory flood storage, right? This has compensatory flood storage, right? Yeah. That would be the most important one. And Danielle, excuse me, I don't think I heard the whole presentation. You guys ended up revising when Jill said these did not meet the performance standards. You guys revised that to meet the performance standards?
No, so basically what we explained was there's been precedence for multiple linear projects where if you can't fill exactly on a foot by foot basis, that you look to compensate at the lower elevation. So and it's very typical in bridge projects and linear transportation projects. So what we've demonstrated is, one, there's not only a net cut for the entire project, but that because I think she had concern of, you know, if we were filling, could be impacting upstream flooding or even downstream flooding. And what we demonstrated is the table that's in the NOI in section 4 actually shows like the first 7 feet of the project within the floodplain were actually from the western side is a net cut. So it's both upstream has a net cut, then in the middle portion, there's the fill, and then at the very lower end is another net cut where we do the compensatory flood storage. So there really is, there should be no impact with regard to upstream or downstream flooding with regard to this, because as a whole, we have provided more flood storage than what is there currently.
Okay, so we have, one through, what are we up to now, 50 something?
Yeah, the standard are 1 through 50. I think DP's 1 through 20, and then ours are 21 to 50. And I know there's a checklist on there about compensatory flood storage. And then I just, on the top of my head, I was thinking probably the most important thing would be to have like a pre-construction meeting with, you know, whoever whoever gets assigned the bid. We have a
Yeah.
meeting with them and go over, you know, construction entrances and access and
critical aspects of the project.
yeah, where they give us like a construction sequence and what we can expect each month. And then you would probably also want to ask for monthly reports to be sent to the commission agent via email. That would be a good one. Once the work actually starts every month, there should be a report coming in just saying this day we opened up the construction drive access road and this is what we did. And that's kind of standard for big projects like this.
Yeah, do you anticipate any, geotechnical exploration, necessary during the construction?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay,
No, but from what I'm learning, and I could be wrong, but I do believe MassDOT they are testing soil before they will dispose of soil nowadays.
yeah.
So I know what the Central Street project, they had to find a location to bring the soil, to test the soil before they could bring the soil to a site.
Yeah, and also the excavation for the culverts, associated with, Proctor Brook, with regard to, removal of debris. You know, that would be under checklist D, that, we could add checklist D to that. Under, North River, Galway Brook, Proctor Brook, Strong Brook, channel culvert work, just a couple items there. You anticipate any dewatering?
There may need to be some dewatering just due to the issue of Proctor Brook and the construction, but there will be a NIPD's permit that will be the contractor will have to follow as part of that, so they'll have do any dewatering in accordance with the NIPD's permit.
Okay, so we have a checklist, Jay, for dewatering, so we can add that in, and then as, Lucia, if you're gonna check with, you and Brennan, go over the stuff, you can either leave it in or take that out.
I'm
Yeah,
looking at
kinda-
this is a question to Danielle. I'm looking at the, one of the pages of the plan, one of the site plan sheets. It's, for landscaping, wetland replication plant list. And it lists, sumac, but it's smooth sumac. To me, that doesn't seem like that would be a recommended native plant to put into a wetland, even though it is a wetland plant. Am I mistaken, or is that a native plant?
I'm not a landscape architect, so
Okay.
I'm
You're
going
more
to
stormwater, yeah.
yeah, I can absolutely ask our wetland scientist and landscape architect on that. I know that she typically always does native plants, so I would be surprised if it's not native.
Okay,
Because usually she's very
conscientious
she's
and all
very
that.
yes.
To me, I just remember sumac being like an invasive species, but maybe this is a different one. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. I don't know, but
Oh, I did just get a message. It is a native plant. It is a
okay.
native.
Yeah, and sumac is I've watched birds devour it. It is like around here. I mean, yeah, it's a good.
Okay, great.
Okay, so, so if there's nobody on the commission who has more questions, or there's nobody from the, public who want to speak on this matter, then I would make the motion to close the public hearing.
Second,
Roll call.
right, that motion was made by Mr. Rizzo, seconded by Mr. Valdi, correct? Mr. Vivaldi, correct?
Yes.
Roll call, Chairman Lazaris,
Yes,
Vice Chairman Rizzo,
Yes,
Secretary Vivaldi,
Yes.
Commissioner Comac,
Yes,
Commissioner Athos,
Yes,
Commissioner Cassidy,
Yes.
and Commissioner Harrop.
Yes.
All right, so it is closed 7-0.
okay, this point, I will, make a motion to issue an order of conditions for this project. Items 1 through 50. Adding checklist D with regard to removal of debris, even though it may, be covered somewhere else, just to have it in there for now, in case you need to take it out, you can, by recommendation for debris removal within the channel or the culvert during construction. And the other one would be,
Site.
checklist J,
Okay.
regarding dewatering.
And Lucia will meet with, the contractor, and the team for construction sequencing.
Yeah.
And the contractor will provide a construction reporting, is it monthly reporting? Or is it more like every other month or something?
monthly should be fine.
Is it, I'm just wondering if it's too much.
It could be, yeah, monthly's fine.
Okay.
Might be me writing it, but with help from the contractor.
We,
But
we, it could be every other month if. I
could be
mean, that's-
milestones, but I mean, I don't know, maybe, maybe Lucia and I can sit down when we have like before the pre-construction
Yeah.
meeting and outline if there's like certain milestones that we want to target.
Sure.
That'd be fine too, Brendan.
Yep. I mean, whatever you guys want, I'm just.
I think
No,
anytime between now and when the next 21 days, if you and Lucia, something comes up and you want to add a condition, you can run it by us, but I think we're pretty good.
Anybody
Need
else?
to- Need to make a motion on these conditions and vote on them?
Yeah,
I think Mike,
I made the motion.
Right.
I
So now
second
we
that
just-
motion.
I need a second.
I do, second.
Roll call.
All right, I think I heard Arthur say that he seconded it, and I just want to go over, I heard the pre-construction meeting, monthly to quarterly email reports TBD. The compensatory flood storage condition, I don't think you guys said that, but that is a must.
Yes.
Checklist D and checklist J regarding dewatering. That motion was made by Mr. Rizzo, seconded by Mr. Athos. Roll call, Chairman Lazaris.
I just want to add
Yes.
one more thing. Is it important for the contractor to provide like what step he'll do first and what section of the trail they'll do first and second and third and all that sequencing?
I think that can probably fall under the pre-construction conference or at the time around the time of the
Okay.
pre-construction conference.
Okay.
Roll call, Chairman Lazaris.
Yes,
Vice Chairman Rizzo.
Yes,
Secretary Vivaldi.
Yes.
Commissioner Comac.
yes,
Commissioner Athos.
Yes,
Commissioner Cassidy.
Yes.
And Commissioner Harrop.
Yes.
So that passes 7-0.
very good.
And it's due before you move on to the next item, and I could have sworn I just saw Bill Manuel, but I do see Bill Manuel. So if you want to go back to 24.5 North Central, because I know there's residents in the neighborhood. So I'm sorry, back to you, Danielle and Brendan, if you wanted to say something to close this out.
Just wanted to thank everyone. We really appreciate you listening to this, and we're excited for the project to move forward.
Yep. Thanks,
Thank
guys. I
you.
really appreciate you guys,
Right. Nice job.
taking and
Equally.
listening to this tonight. Appreciate it.
I
Thank
want to thank everybody for their contribution. Danielle, you did an excellent job of explaining it to us tonight. And the remedies you came up with, I think, are acceptable and should be a very good project. I look forward to the ribbon cutting.
Great.
Me too.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night. Thank you.
Good night. Yeah. Okay, you said you want to go back to
Item
Bill
six.
Emmanuel, okay.
Six.
Item 6, correct?
Yes, please.
Mm,
I just
24 and a half
promoted
Central,
Bill
okay.
Manuel to a panelist, so he'll take it from
All right, let me read it first. Continue public hearing and a notice of intent submitted by Wetlands and Land Management, Inc., William Manuel for JND Real Estate Solutions LLC, John DeCoulis. Proposed work is a demolition of an existing single-family home and a redevelopment of parcel into 3 townhouse-style units with access driveways, garage parking, landscaping, stormwater management facilities, and new utilities. The work includes 650 square foot of filled wetland and replication areas. Property is known as 24 and a half North Central Street, map 64, lot 28, Peabody, Mass. Bill, take it away.
All right, thank you. I'll just share my screen. And so this is a project where we actually filed this notice of intent back in January. We deferred opening or beginning any discussion on it because the project went out for stormwater management peer review. Since that time, we've got DEP comments. It was initially filed as a 3-unit rebuild, and that has been reduced to a duplex, 2-unit rebuild. And I'll get into the particulars of the project. The commission will remember that the last year they issued an ORAD to define the wetlands on the property. There is bordering vegetated wetlands outlined in green here. And there is an intermittent stream ditch that was ordinance regulated. It's not a river under the Wetlands Protection Act, but you do regulate and put riverfront area on intermittent stream ditches. So there is one along the old rail line out back. That 200-foot locally protected riverfront area is this line right here. So jumping over to the proposed plan, I'll enlarge it a little bit. Recall that our first proposal was for a 3-unit building with a driveway running down the side here. It involved a little bit, about 650 square feet of wetland alteration in this area right here. And this little high ground area here would have been removed for wetland replication. As I said, we've got comments from DEP. They did not appear to be favorable to the project as a 3-unit building with wetland fill. So we've scaled that back to the duplex. And there is a 10 by, each unit would have a 10 by 20 deck. So it's a 10 by 40 deck off the rear of the home. That deck is a full story above grade. You see that there is no longer any wetland alteration, so there's no longer any wetland replication. The project, what I've done is I've superimposed the existing structure onto the proposed, so you can see that we've situated the proposed building essentially over the footprint of the what's there now. The parking has been relocated from either along the side of the lot here to in front of the lot. And there is this increase of about 900 and almost just under 1,000 square feet of new impervious area. And that's all been mitigated by the stormwater management BMPs that we have proposed. First of all, you'll see that there is a trench drain right along the property line here, right along the street line, that collects any runoff from the driveways. It sends it to this water quality inlet. This is an oil and grit separator. Water is then discharged to this infiltration bed at the rear of the property. Roof water likewise is collected and then piped directly to this recharge area. The project is only 2 units. We're not required to address stormwater management, but we have. The engineer has provided a lengthy stormwater document that shows that through the use of these BMPs and particularly the recharge bed, We've reduced peak flows from existing conditions on the property by a small amount. We have also reduced runoff volume by a small amount. And there is a extensive operations and maintenance program for maintaining this structure here, maintaining these drains, maintaining the roof drains, and inspecting the recharge bed. So as I said, that none of that is required under your regulations or the State Wetlands Protection Act, but it's getting to be fairly standard operating procedure to manage your stormwater, no matter how small the project is. So that is essentially the project in a nutshell. It has been reduced in scope from what you saw originally. It's been 3 unit down to 2. Parking has been relocated from the side of the lot, the right side, to the front. So now the proposed structure completely isolates the driveway from the wetlands in the rear yard. The 650 square feet of wetland alteration has been removed. It reduces impervious cover by about 1,760 square feet from the original submittal. So all in all, a tremendous improvement. And so I'll leave it at that and I'll open it up to any questions.
To the chair. So looking at the plan, it's really a tight site. It's quite a bit of building with only 10 feet on each side of each side of the building to the property lines. So to me, I see a constructability concern about trying to build some of these features into the site without impacting or drastically impacting the neighbors. One in particular I'm referring to is the water quality inlet. So basically that's a septic tank. It's pretty big. It's like 6 by 10 by 6 feet deep. You're showing it to be installed about a foot or 2 feet from the property line. I don't see how you can excavate that, put that in without major disturbance with the abutter, unless you're going to put sheet piling or something in, because if you got a foot of cover over that tank, then you're talking about an 8-foot excavation, some 1 to 2 feet from the property line to try to put that structure in. And so I see that as a constructability question or concern. I'd like to see how you can address that. Same with the because you also have a swale that's going between that side of the property, at the right side of the house, and the property line. You have a swale, so the swale is about a foot deep. So that really, that's a big excavation to be putting to have that in and maintain or protect that person's property, your neighbor's property line. An 8-foot excavation is pretty deep. The other thing was I saw there's just a conflict with your landscape plan. You're showing proposed trees right where your water quality inlet's going. So that's something we'll have to change with regard to that. I just want to show that on the plan. So and then this is just, it's not a too big a thing, but where the chambers are going is they're showing a 4.5 foot the detail showing a 4.5 foot separation from the estimated high groundwater and the bottom of the stone. That is not possible. And to build the 2-foot chambers, have 8 inches of cover and not be sticking up out of the ground, they don't go with your grades for the wall. You're off by a couple feet, but I think the 4.5 foot dimension is probably not correct. I think it's around 2 feet of separation you're providing. So that detail is confusing. So just for constructability reasons, I have those questions. I'd like to see that addressed.
Would you like me to respond to that now, or do other commissioners have questions?
Yeah, thank you, Bill.
Okay, so valid questions. This is very close to the line. They would probably need a sheet pile reinforcement, temporary sheet pile to do that excavation. Probably a better solution would be to relocate it. We certainly have the pitch down to the recharge bed, so I believe we can just pull that back upslope a little bit, and we can actually put that underneath the driveway. And that would work just fine. And that would probably take care of the conflict between the landscape plan, the trees shown. The trees can obviously be relocated around the, left or right, up or back, but that would probably eliminate the conflict there. Yeah, the detail needs to be refined a little bit. But we're picking the grade up here by about 3 feet in the back with a modular block retaining wall. So the separation, I believe, is probably more like 2 feet to groundwater.
Right.
The other thing you mentioned, Mr. Rizzo, about the swales, these are very
Yeah.
subtle. You could see the adjustment, the proposed, let me enlarge this a little bit.
Yeah, there's a V ditch on the left side, and you have basically a swale on the right side, according to your contours.
Yeah, and you can see the adjustment from the proposed, which is a solid line, versus the existing. There's very little a change in grade here, just enough to be able to have water not flow on abutting properties and be directed towards the rear of the property. Same with over here. You can see there's there's probably about a foot cut here. I don't know that we even need that much, but it's intended to just make sure that the water doesn't shed laterally, towards the abutting properties, and that it is directed towards the rear of the property where this vegetated wetland is. Remember, commission members, the wetland, the previous owners were maintaining it as lawn. It's getting a little scruffy now, and it's coming in as a meadow, which it's going to look pretty nice once, give it another season or two. It's going to look like a fairly nice meadow, but that's our plan, is to direct the water down towards the back of the property. 10 feet to the sidelines, anybody that can run a machine certainly can operate within 10 feet, but your point is well taken about this excavation here being close to the property line. We should take a look at that.
Okay.
Anybody
And
else?
Mr. Manuel, the trees that you mentioned, you did say that take a look at the landscape plan, but I totally agree that the landscape plan looks very busy and more planned than should actually be planted there because of its low tight.
So here's the landscape plan. Thank you for taking a look at it, because it did come hot off the presses just a couple of days ago, and we wanted to get that into your hands. Again, it's a landscape plan for a project of this nature is not required.
I agree.
But we wanted to, give some thought to it and show how the property is going to be restored. It's intended to provide a little bit of privacy and screening between the two properties. Nice trees up front, and some vegetation along the sidelines here. There's not a whole lot of landscaping involved here. Just some, their plants are called out. 3 winterberries, 7 junipers, 3 arborvitaes. There is a screening fence along both sides. Same sort of plant density over here, 3 arborvitaes. And some over here are more perennials, daylilies and irises. So, it's a nice combination of shrubs and perennials and some nice street trees.
And the plantings on the right side of the property you don't think will interfere with the underground storage?
No, these are
Closer to the
winterberries, so
front.
they're a shrub.
Closer to the front.
Close, over in here.
Yeah.
So if we were to remove that, again, these are winterberry, so they're, it would be close to that water quality inlet, and so maybe that, as I said, that inlet possibly could be repositioned underneath the driveway over here. So that's just a matter of tweaking and find the appropriate spot for it.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, another thing that I was looking at the operation and maintenance document, the report that goes with the project. It's good and it's very detailed. And I really question who's going to be responsible for maintaining that O&M plan and abiding by it, because you have this strip drain at the end of at the driveway there that's going to collect any drippings or oil and so forth that would come from off a vehicle and into that. So it's like a separator. So I mean that's going to be maintained, and I just know how that stuff happens. It doesn't get maintained. And then you say there's also no car washing. How are you going to tell somebody? I can't imagine somebody owning a car and not wanting to wash their car in front of the house. So it's a good O&M plan. I just don't know how it's going to be managed properly.
Well, there is going to have to be agreement between the two property owners about how that is going to occur. I would imagine the order of conditions might say something to the effect of, provide a framework of agreement that the property owners would enter into. Again, the stormwater management is not something that's required, and if you think it's unworkable, we could always eliminate it and just run.
Well, no, I think
grade it so that the things just run off to the rear. But these are details that, frankly, we haven't worked all the way through because we're still in the permitting phase. But obviously, the two homeowners there, the two duplex owners, are going to have some agreement about how that is maintained and worked out between them.
So, question for Lucia is, public services okay with this site plan now, or?
That is a good question. I don't know. I
Yeah.
have not heard from Bob. I saw him today. I got an email about 39 Wallace Street, but he has not. I don't know if he's sending this back to peer review, or if he's going to review it himself. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I kind of almost feel that it should go back to peer review, but
Well, remember, this is not, the stormwater management is not required under any regulation. So sending it to a peer review for something that's not required, I don't think is appropriate.
okay.
The only reason I would like to see it reviewed by engineering, either Bob or somebody, is because you're building in wetland. I mean, it's the
building in buffer
stormwater
zone.
management. I'm sorry?
We're building in buffer zone. We've eliminated the wetland alteration.
But it's like with rising tides and everything else, I don't see how stormwater management is just not necessary. That's my point.
Well, it would be incumbent upon you to change your regulations, but the present ones don't require it for a duplex.
Well, Okay,
Through the chair, he's correct. If it's 4 and under, they're giving you this because they and I'm speaking for you, Bill. I believe they're giving these stormwater features because at the last few meetings, the neighbors
Yeah.
did speak of flooding issues. So I think they are trying to keep the water on this property to not, so it doesn't go into the people on either side and across the streets,
Yeah.
yards and basements. Am I correct, Bill?
I couldn't have
Yeah.
said it any better.
Yeah, and I concur. That's why I had the constructability question. Is, it needs some revisions to make it work.
Yeah, and no question, we saw in the springtime that there is flooding in probably beginning right about here at flag A5. There was standing water, at least when I was flagging this, there was standing water in the back here. And this is, well, it saturated the surface. That's why I called it wetland. So no question, a high water table. This site's being elevated so that we will be able to recharge into dry ground. And, the swales along the side and reduction of runoff volume from current conditions, as well as reduction of peak flows. These are all improvements with
Yeah.
respect to stormwater management above and beyond what or how the current site's operating now.
do we continue this till we see the next set of plans?
That's okay with me. Does anybody else have any questions? You
I
gotta,
have a
open
few
it up to the
questions.
public?
I have some questions.
Okay.
And are you guys asking them to revise it?
I think it has to be revised. Yeah, I don't think
Yes.
it can be built the way, I
Hmm.
think the constructability of this is in question.
Okay, so
Bill
that
mentioned about Bill
the
mentioned
water
about.
quality inlet, you want it to get moved so that I can cross off this sheet piling condition, correct?
That's gotta be engineered to see that that's doable.
Yeah, we'll give you some better detail on either. We're either going to move that or we'll give you some better detail on it.
Okay, so some of my questions, and these are all like real easy questions. So in the rear, above the proposed recharge, is that going to be grass?
It will be a grass cover over that recharge area.
Okay, so yes. And then the wall that you're going to be built, obviously you're building it right right next to the wetland. So I'm assuming that these are easy constructability that you're going to be able to build on the upland side and no one has to go into the wetland to construct that wall. I mean, how are you
That
going
is
to get
correct.
erosion controls down? It's just so tight. That's my only issue. Do you need erosion controls? Aren't you going to have to dig down to put the first few blocks down? Like, how are we going to, how is the wall going to get constructed without altering that portion of the wetlands right there, A3 and A2?
Yeah, no question. It's very tight. That's why we're using those, modular concrete block retaining wall. You can see this black dashed line. It is the erosion barrier. It'll be a mulch sock or a silt fence, which has a very small footprint. It could be installed right along the wetland boundary in this location. Those gravity block walls, all they require is a crushed stone footing. So we'd be able to install that footing. Everything would be worked from the upland side of the project. That would be done very early in the project's phases. And so basically, once that wall is in, you now have a physical barrier between the wetlands and the project site. So once the walls go in, they're very easy to install. Once they go in, you have now a physical barrier between your work site and the adjacent wetland.
Yeah, so
Yeah, it's gonna have to be a lot of handwork, Bill, obviously, because as you construct that wall, you gotta backfill that, but that's where your that's where your drainage system's being constructed, so you can't have heavy vehicles driving over that, compacting that earth. It's gotta stay loose so that the permeability below the units don't get clogged. It's got to stay loose. So you just got to be careful with with heavy equipment back there in that area where you're going to be filtering that back into the ground.
Yep, no question about it. Maybe we even need to clarify that the ground surface, because they're not going to do this by hand. They are going to have a machine. So the native ground surface for this recharge area should be scarified after they're done installing the wall, because this recharge bed is basically, as you can figure it out, they're going to put the wall in, they're going to
Right.
backfill it, and then they're going
Backfill
to
as they go.
excavate the recharge bed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I have a couple more questions. So that kind of segues to the erosion controls. I don't know what the detail is on this, but I was thinking that we would probably need one of the larger logs, like not just the like 8-inch or the 10-inch. I'm thinking like a larger one with a silt fence behind it. Just because there's a lot going on. Like it looks like the whole thing is going to get excavated. There's going to be so much work done. And then there's not a swale detail, and forgive me if this is a stupid question, but is there some sort of a generic swale detail that you can put on this so that I am in the future, if I'm still the agent, I'm not fighting with the contractor about what it's supposed to look like?
Yeah, we can do that. Yep.
Yeah, because you actually have two different kinds. One, you have a V ditch and a swale.
All right, and then my last question, I think, is the dewatering. Is there a dewatering detail? Because if not, I would suggest we have some sort of a dewatering plan and detail on that that detail sheet.
Okay. Another valid point. We probably are going to may need to dewater for the foundation.
Yeah, I
This
think
is going to be above the water table, so we might not get
Yeah.
into it, but we'll definitely get into it now that I'm talking to myself through it. So dewatering detail.
Any more questions, Luce?
I think that's it from me, but if you wanted to open it to members of the public, and tomorrow I can send an email to Bob. He knew my meeting was tonight, so I don't like to press people to get me stuff. I let people do their job on their own, and I'm not his boss, so I didn't really want to press him for it. I figured if he had something, he would have given it to me. But I will email him tomorrow because you guys are asking for it. But at this point, I would open it to members of the public.
Have a motion to open it to the public? I'm just gonna do that, yes? I don't need a motion.
No motion.
Anybody, huh? Anybody want to speak from the public? I don't see any hands raised yet.
Yes, Mr. Stevens, I'm going to allow him to speak.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Stevens, okay.
And just a reminder to have him state his full name and address for the record, please. He is coming as a panelist, I believe.
Thank you.
Hello, you guys
Hi.
hear me okay?
Can hear you, can't see you, but I can hear you.
I turned that video on and I'm not sure what's going on. You probably don't want to look at me anyhow. Hey, there I am. Hello, guys. Paul Stevens, 24 North Central Street. So, kind of a little quick statement. Our problems of these three properties, 24, 24A, 24 and a half, has always just been water. The next to me, I'm 24, so 22, they're 2 feet higher than me. They were allowed to build water flows into my yard. Next to 26, there's the property over there was allowed to build a large parking lot in the back, which was all built up, pushing all of that water into the backside at 26 and into the backside of 24 and a half. So that's the water that we're dealing with. We're in a bowl. And it kind of seems like every time somebody wants to build, the buck just gets passed to the other people that are dealing with the water problem. Now I'll get into some like just some kind of things that I see in that are kind of good, like eye candy, but not really, not really doable. So we have the, the Legion system. I forget what you guys are calling it, the recharging bed. All the water's going into a recharging bed. And as we know, a drop of water goes to the lowest point. That lowest point of the property is right there at 24A. You're not going to be able to stop all of that water that it's collecting from flowing right to the neighbor's property. It might be the backside, of that new retaining wall, but it's still going to be as close to the neighbor as possible. Another thing is this recharging is good for slowing, water rates, let it naturally do what it's supposed to do, but that only works one way, because that being in the buffer zone, we've had a really bad year right now, and I would argue that the ground isn't saturated over there. The ground is super saturated. Even now, you could walk on it and you're going to squeeze water out of that sod. The only way for that water to dissipate is, as everything starts to dry up, it naturally will recede to the back of the yard. If we keep getting rains and the water comes forward towards the properties, there's no way for that recharging station to participate in the buffer. It's only a one-way valve. So you're going to have, they don't have like dimensions of how much into the buffer they've raised up, but let's for, just quick math, 650 square feet, they've taken out of the buffer zone from participating in natural processes. They are a great system in the back of like large parking lots. They really do work good, but once again, they're a one-way valve. The test holes. So we got water levels. We got water levels from the driest portion of the year, 2023. I believe it was August 8th, 2023. This year, you test the water right now, and it's going to be far higher than that at 57.3 mark. Far higher. And so more 3/4 of the year, we're gonna be dealing with water issue. And then all the samples are taking at the driest point of the year. You would think that when they test the water, they would go to the worst possible case scenario versus the best possible case scenario. I got a couple more, sorry. On the retaining wall on the plans, it's showing that it's 4.3 feet. I think we kind of discussed that. It'll be about 3 feet. But on the plans, it's page 2 of the plan where it's describing the retaining wall. There's a portion of the retaining wall that shows a 4-inch diameter drain outlet at end of wall or at 40 feet center max. Is that part of the leaching system? Is that like an overflow valve? Is that a relief for the backside of the wall, so there's no extra water pressure on the backside of the wall? And the main question is, where is that being directed? Because that's gonna, if that's part of the recharging bed, that's gonna act as an open drain, especially if the water levels are too high and those underground tanks fill up. That's gonna be an open drain. By the looks of the plan, how they have it described, it looks, once again, it's going to be pointing right at 24A's property. But I think that could be clarified with, a different angle of the drawing. The recharging bed itself, so it's going to lead straight down. Like I said, waters are really high. it's not gonna leach down as fast as everybody's hoping. It's gonna be a time release, and the amount of water that's gonna collect in there are gonna fill those tanks up pretty fast. If those tanks fill up, say even a foot higher, say 6 inches higher, on the plans, on the left side of the property, where the wall ends, I'm assuming that's a portion of the wall where that goes right into the swale. That portion, right where they combine, right where they're adjoining, that's going to be a pressure relief valve. As much water is going to flow out of that as possible. And once it starts eroding, I mean, it's not going to stop eroding. It's going to really compromise that whole side of the yard. Yeah, and I'm just more concerned about taking the buffer zone out of the equation. It's the grass on top, the water is going to go right below that into rock, crushed rock. There's not going to be any really evaporation. Bill already alluded to the current grass back there is just going to be, that's it. They're going to let it turn into a swamp, like a full-blown swamp. And once that happens, you're still going to get shade on the grass. You're going to start cutting down on evaporation. It's going to grow cattails that are really designed to keep the water on the ground instead of evaporating it. And that's going to further push, that's going to expand the swamp into everybody else's property. So by allowing one property to neglect their property, you're destroying, abutting neighbors' properties. And on that note, I think I've asked, I gave my input. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. I think we need a motion to continue.
There's one more person, Kimberly Bates. I am going to promote her to a
I'm
panelist.
sorry. I'm sorry, Kim.
Basketball.
Yeah.
Kim, state your name and address for the record, please. I'm not sure what's going on with Kim. She has her hand raised. And I got a notice that said she refused to become a panelist, but she is a panelist, so I'm not sure what's going on.
She just texted me that her screen is frozen. If you can give her time to back out and rejoin.
Okay.
Yeah, I think sometimes when if like I request the promotion to a panelist, it might be too much depending on like what she's on. So maybe I'll just have her just unmute herself.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. My computer did not like being added to a panel. Okay, my name is Kimberly Bates
And I'm James Bates.
at 24A North Central. We agree and concur with our neighbor, Mr. Stevens, because, yeah, we all do out and you can't walk on it. It floats, it does all kinds of stuff. So even up to where the back wall that they're gonna put, the retaining wall, you can walk out sometimes in the back of that person's house and it would be wet. So I'm just saying, when they go to do this digging and all that stuff, I think they will be fighting some saturation, depending upon the time of construction. You know, and we deal with water coming down our driveway and having to, you know, try to make sure that's not flooding our garage and different things. We have a car garage in the back of the house. So anything like that is very concerning to us as far as water. We all do fight the water back here. So that's all I wanted to add, and that I do concur with my neighbor. And I appreciate your time and effort and what they are trying to do. I do appreciate. So, I mean, that's all I really can say.
Thank you. Anybody else out there?
I would move to continue the hearing.
Before
a
you
second?
move to continue, if I could just take a minute to just address some of those comments before we move on. I just want to alert Mrs. Bates that there is going to be a retaining wall along this side of the property line here that is going to prevent water from heading in your direction. That's what the purpose of this swale is here, to pick up any water and make sure it gets run to the back of the property. With respect to Mr. Stevens' comments, some of it I had a hard time following, but I just want to point out to you that the recharge area and the water quality inlets and such, they do reduce the peak flows, not by a whole lot, but and they do reduce the volumes, not by a whole lot, but there is less peak flow and less water runoff from the site in the post-development condition because of this recharge bed. And it's not required for a 2-unit building, but it's something that the applicant and the engineers felt was going to be necessary to, you know, give neighbors a comfort factor that this isn't something that's just jammed in there with no regard to the current conditions that are there. We're aware that the backyard is wet. I flagged it as wetland. The commission agreed with it. We're staying out of it, and the work that's in the adjacent buffer zone, we're allowed to do that work. We do need to come to the commission for some oversight and appropriate conditions. And we're working as hard as we can to satisfy everybody. And I think it's a decent plan. We're going to give a few tweaks to it and come back in the next month. So yes, if you would continue and just continue the hearing for the next month.
May I clarify my statement?
Go ahead.
So once again, that the recharging bed, it's going to act as a one-way valve. So yeah, any water that's coming from the property, the rooftop, the driveways, side property that's flowing into the yard is going to go into essentially the catch basin or septic tank. It's going to clean water. It's going to flow into recharging bed. And then based on how that's above the ground, above current grade, you're taking that portion of the buffer zone out of the water coming the other way. So when water is building up, it's not going to go, it's going to hit the wall, it's not going to be able to go back into the charging station, and it's going to flow into the neighbor's yard. You're taking that square footage that you're raising, you're just taking that right out of the buffer zone. That whatever processes, natural processes that those dimensions absorb water, pitch water, all that's going to be taken out of the equation.
Right. I don't want to get into the back and forth debate, but that's the entire purpose of the stormwater design, is to compensate for the increase of impervious surface in the buffer zone and approximate the pre-construction rate of infiltration. So that's the entire purpose of that recharge bed. But so having said that, we would like to continue the hearing, and we'll see you at your July meeting.
Okay, do we hear a motion to continue?
Move to continue.
Second,
Second.
roll call.
All right, so that motion was made by Mr. Atha, second by Ms. Harrop, and the next meeting would be July 31, I believe. Roll call. Oh, I lost my roll call. 1 second. Stuart, Chairman Lazaris,
Yes,
Vice Chairman Rizzo, you guys might be muted. I had to mute everyone because there was reverb.
Yes.
Secretary Vivaldi,
Yes.
Commissioner Comack,
Yes.
Commissioner Athos,
Yes.
Commissioner Cassidy,
Yes.
and Commissioner Harrop.
Yes.
And Jamie, am I pronouncing your last name right?
You're doing great, Lucia. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, so that item passes unanimously 7-0. So the next meeting is July 31, and Paul and Kim and James, I will send you updates as they come, and I will make sure that you guys also get a copy of the agenda as soon as it's ready, and any time the plans are revised, I'll make sure you guys get copies of that as well.
Thank you very much.
thank you.
All right. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Oh, I better stop sharing.
Um, item 8, I believe. Continued public hearing and a notice of intent submitted by attorney John R. Kelty for Josephine Cook, the owner. Proposed work is the construction of a single-family house. The associated utilities, grading, and driveway property is known as 29 Glendale, also known as 25 Glendale Ave, map 120, lot 27.
Through the chair, I received correspondence from Attorney Kelty asking to continue this until July 31 as well. There is still some holdup. I'm not sure why. We asked him, I think in like April or March, to go to ZBA to confirm that they were aware of that 2003 decision. I believe he's going there for their July meeting, and then hopefully he has that, and he has that piece of paper to come to us saying that he has his relief, and then we go from there, whether or not you guys want to vote on the plan as it stands for now, I guess. So from what I understand,
Okay.
we are still waiting for ZBA to confirm that they were aware of that 2003 decision.
So Attorney Kelty sent us a note saying he wants to continue to July 31st. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
So I need a motion to continue.
I'll make a
Motion to
motion.
continue.
I'll second
And
the
a
motion
second?
to continue.
Okay, I think I heard Mike Rizzo and Mr. Vivaldi made that second. Roll call. Chairman Lazaris,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Rizzo,
Yes.
Secretary Vivaldi,
Yes.
Commissioner Comack,
Yes.
Commissioner Athos,
Yes.
Commissioner Cassidy,
Yes.
and Commissioner Harrop.
Yes.
All right, so that is continued till July 31, 7-0.
Okay, moving on. Number 9, continued public hearing on a notice of intent submitted by Hayes Engineering, Inc., care of Peter Ogren, for Atlantic Coast Home, care of Michael Becker. The owner is Hardy and Monroe LLC. Michael Becker is manager. Proposed work is the construction of a commercial condominium with associated parking, utilities, landscaping. Property is known as 0 Hardy Street, map 85, lot 1. Is this continued?
Yes, if you recall, this did go to peer review and I have not received anything back, no rebuttals, no revised plans. I haven't received anything. I reached out to the engineer of record and to the attorney and I received no response. So finally I called Mike Becker, the applicant, and I believe the owner. And, you know, so he ended up sending me a personal email requesting a continuance as well till July 31.
Okay, so we need a motion to continue. Mike Vivaldi, or
Make
Go
a
ahead,
motion
Mike.
to continue the project till July 31st.
second,
I'll second it.
roll call.
That motion was made by Mr. Vivaldi, seconded by Mr. Cassidy. Roll call, Chairman Lazares,
Yes,
Vice Chairman Rizzo,
Yes.
Secretary Vivaldi,
Yes.
Commissioner Comack,
Yes.
Commissioner Athos,
Yes.
Commissioner Cassidy,
Yes.
and Commissioner Harrop.
Yes.
All right, so that too is continued 7-0 until the July 31st meeting.
item 10. What time is it? Item 10, public hearing on notice of intent. We're moving right along, 9 o'clock. Notice of intent submitted by Hayes Engineering, Inc., Peter Ogren, for Tanright Realty LLC, Nicholas Ambiolotis, applicant owner. Proposed project is the redevelopment of property to accommodate 40B mixed-use development with 2 buildings, associated walkways, utilities, drives, parking area, stormwater in flood management, BMPs, landscaping, and other amenities. It's also known as 39 Wallace Street, map 85, lots 9, 10, and 11, Peabody, Mass. Is anybody here for that?
Good evening, Commissioners, Mr. Chair and Lucia. My name is Jason Panos, practicing law at 246 Andover Street, Peabody, Massachusetts, here on behalf of the applicant Tanright Residences LLC. Commissioners, this, as you indicated in your notice, and in the interest of time, I'm gonna give you a very brief description of what's going on here. This application concerns 3 contiguous parcels of land on Wallace, Upton streets, fronting on Walnut Street. It is the subject of a comprehensive permit, which was issued by the Zoning Board of Appeals back in September 11th of last year, 2023. Particularly the stormwater management features have been extensively peer reviewed through that process by Horsley Witten. And we're here tonight to seek an order of conditions because there are 2 resource areas on the site. By way of administration, the application was originally submitted to you, to this commission, back in May, and supplements to that application were delivered to the commission today, I believe, or perhaps yesterday. Those supplements had to do with a discrepancy. There was a disagreement between Hayes Engineering and the commissioner regarding whether or not we fronted or were within a riverfront area. After talking with Hayes about the matter, they saw the commission's point of view and decided, in the interests of time and in the interest of advancing the application and cooperating with the commission, that we would see it your way. So just to give you a little background, the site is fully developed. It's the site of the Travel Leather Company, which is Peabody's last functioning tannery. And it is fully developed and covered entirely with impervious surfaces, including a variety of building structures, pavement, concrete pads, walkways, utilities, water tank, and fencing. Neighboring properties, it's an interesting neighborhood, as you are well aware, one of Peabody's oldest neighborhoods, in fact, and contains a mix of industrial, manufacturing, warehouse buildings, and an apartment building immediately adjacent called Peabody House. The two resource areas on site are that small portions of the property, 0.2 acres out of almost 2 acres of the site, are located approximately at the southwest corner intersection of Wallace and Walnut Street and northeast corner intersection of Upton and Street, are within the 100-year floodplain, placing those portions of the site within the bordering land subject to flooding resource area protected under the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act. Worth noting, because this is a comprehensive permit development, proposed development, it is subject strictly to the Wetlands Protection Act and not the local ordinance. The second resource area I talked a little bit about is a small portion of the existing building at 39 Wallace Street is also within the protected Wetlands Protection Act 200-foot riverfront area resource area extending from the perennial waterway flowing through the property at 32 Walnut Street, which is kind of kitty corner across the street. The redevelopment of the site proposed is the Tanright Residences, which provides for both multifamily residential and commercial space fronting Walnut Street, 132 units of residential rental apartments. Consists of 2 L-shaped buildings connected by a sky bridge, interior and exterior paved parking areas, stormwater and floodwater management systems. Again, that stormwater management plan having been very heavily vetted by Horsley Witten, ultimately adopted into the comprehensive permit, and having been approved not only by Horsley Witten, but by Bob Langley, the Director of Engineering on behalf of the city, overseeing that peer review process for the Zoning Board of Appeals. And that resulted, by the way, in Bob Langley's closeout letter to the Zoning Board of Appeals, which I provided you a couple of days ago, along with the decision and along with the stormwater management plan. That memo was provided or dated August 31st, 2023. And then Bob, I believe, proceeded to give you a whole host of backup material that led to that closeout memo. The most important point I can impart is that that stormwater management plan has been peer reviewed. It's been accepted. As a matter of fact, I believe it was accepted by the peer reviewer and the city engineering department as early as spring of last year. So included in that are other vegetative plantings, pocket parks, which are intended to act as part of that stormwater management system, vegetative screening and plantings that are actually intended to function very similar to Veterans Memorial Park across the street. So it's a heavily engineered site. The project features consist of the following. There's apartment building construction. That activity consists of construction of the 2 L-shaped buildings connected by the bridge, exterior parking lots and subsurface flood storage units. This activity proceeds after the bulk of apartment building construction is completed and consists of constructing the on-site exterior paved parking lots and garage entryways along the proposed buildings. The garage is proposed to be both indoor and outdoor with features that mitigate the so-called heat island effect. The stormwater management system, which this commission, I'm sure, is very interested in, consists of a stormwater and drainage management system consisting of deep sump catch basins and contact storm scepter oil grit separator to be installed on site and within the layout of Upton Street as part of the project to capture and treat runoff from new pavement. Project is considered a redevelopment project under the Massachusetts Stormwater Management Standards and meets the standards to the extent practicable as required. As I indicated, that stormwater management report was submitted to the Zoning Board of Appeals for peer review back in March of last year. There was some back and forth with Horsley Witten and Hayes Engineering at the time, and it was ultimately adopted and resulted in the stormwater management plan provided to this commission. There are landscaping features which consists of existing surfaces, loaming, seeding, installation of planting, stone paths, etc. And those are all contemplated in the decision provided to the commission. Erosion and sediment control, again, another feature I'm sure of interest to this commission, consists of proposed work which includes provisions for erosion and sedimentation control during and after construction, including installation of sediment control silt sacks within new and nearby existing catch basins for the duration of the construction activities, installation of a vehicle tracking pad at the entrance site, installing sediment control wattles around stockpiles and other soil stabilization methods. And those are very extensively addressed in not only Bob's closeout memo, but in the decision itself, which incorporates as conditions the features and items discussed in Bob's closeout memo. Bordering land subject to flooding, one of the resource areas implicated, 100-year floodplain compensation. Portions of the proposed building, construction and paving will occur in the so-called BLSF resource area, and as such, any resulting loss of floodplain storage volume by the development will be compensated through installation of a subsurface chambered flood storage area and conversion of impervious surface to pervious to meet Wetlands Protection Act performance standards. If you look at those plans, that stormwater management system, I believe, takes up almost half of the site, half of the 2-acre site. So it's almost, those stormwater chambers and appurtenances take up almost an acre of the site. The southwest corner of the building, proposed building and sidewalk improvements along Wallace Street will be constructed within the existing entirely developed riverfront area that we talked about. The existing RFA resource area on this site does not provide any wildlife habitat due to pavement building and other existing impervious disturbances. I'm sure you're familiar with the area we're talking about across the street on Walnut Street. It is entirely developed. So we reference it obviously in an effort to advance this application. But we are dealing with, as I indicated, one of the city of Peabody's oldest neighborhoods, very developed, mostly impervious, and we are creating pervious surfaces where we can to mitigate any of the impacts of the development, really making it a better design and treating stormwater runoff where none is treated today, or very little of it is treated today, certainly not to the extent proposed. Improvements to the riverfront area include small reduction of impervious surface, as I indicated, by inclusion of landscaped area along the sidewalk at Walnut Street, in addition to other site improvements. Improvements in site conditions, and I talked a little bit about this. Redevelopment of the site will result in an improvement over existing conditions through provision of design net decrease of 11,205 square feet of impervious surface compared to existing conditions where it is 100% impervious. Introduction of floodwater storage and management, introduction of stormwater water quality treatment devices, increased site aesthetics through the provision of vegetated parks, pocket parks really, and improvements to the Upton Street drainage system and other project area infrastructure. With that, we do not have Hayes with us tonight to answer any technical questions you might have. But in the interest of hearing any questions or getting your initial feedback from the application as supplemented, I'm interested in hearing those so I can pass them on to Hayes. I'm certainly interested in hearing any public comment that may that may occur this evening as well. So with that, I'd like to pardon me, hand it back to the chair.
Through the chair. Jason, is this the presentation that you're delivering tonight?
I'm sorry?
Is this the presentation for the project that you're delivering tonight?
No, it's a sneak preview, certainly, in a contextual background. As I said, I don't have Hayes with me tonight to go over the technical presentation, to go over the actual nuts and bolts of the NOI application. Hayes did a decent job, however, in highlighting the differences, the additions, in red, I believe, to the NOI application, and they provided that to the board. And that was revised and provided on June 11th, so yesterday. So if you like this presentation, then Commissioner Rathus,
that was it.
is the presentation.
I didn't have such an engineering mind there. So with this, we will be continuing this till the next meeting?
If that's the pleasure of the board.
We just got the stuff yesterday or today, Jason. That's what you said, correct?
I understand, yes.
And so it will take a while to digest all of it and also get our engineering group to look at it.
Sure.
So we will probably continue this.
I fully expect that, noting that the engineering department in the city has a head start on this, which is a good thing.
No, we know where the land is.
Yep, through the chair, me and Attorney Panos had a discussion today, and I was told there was going to be numerous residents, which I only see one person in the audience. So I didn't want to get into the situation of nobody from Hayes or the applicant side show up, and then we have a bunch of neighbors that are upset that it got continued. And so I said, Attorney Panos, maybe you should come, give a quick presentation. We open to members of the public. At least that way we can hear what they have to say. So I would suggest after or at this time, if you guys are ready and you don't have questions for Attorney Panos, that you would open it to members of the public and we see if there is any members in the public. There's like one person that perhaps.
I didn't see anybody with their hand raised, but I will open it to the public. Does anybody want to speak in the public? Seeing none, I'm going to look for a motion to continue.
Move to continue.
Second.
Roll call.
That motion was made by Mr. Athis, seconded by Mr. Vivaldi. Roll call, Chairman Lazares.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Rizzo.
22.
Vice Chairman Rizzo, I have to mute you guys unfortunately a lot because if you don't mute yourself, it causes reverb when other people are talking. So just assume you got muted.
Yes.
Secretary Vivaldi,
Yes.
Commissioner Comack,
Yes.
Commissioner Athis,
Yes.
Commissioner Cassidy,
Yes.
and Commissioner Harrop.
Yes.
All right, so the item is continued to July 31st, 7-0.
And if there are comments from the commission through Lucia, please feel free to contact me. Actually, the prior engineer, Tony Capichetti, is expected, who is now with Weston and Sampson, but is pitch hitting because he has so much history with this, will be reappearing on this matter. So he and I will be working together. So to the extent you have any questions, comments in the next month, please provide them to me and I will make sure that they get channeled appropriately and get answered to the satisfaction of the commission.
Thank you. Thank you. And
Thank
we'll
you.
see you next month.
You will. Have a good June and July. I can't believe we're talking about July.
No. Enjoy the water.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Watch out for sharks.
Moving on. Item 11. Continued enforcement. These are enforcement orders in violation orders. Continued enforcement order issued.
Stu, we already
I'm sorry?
we already did 11's over. You guys already voted to withdraw it with the stipulation that the erosion.
Okay, you're right. You're right. Moving on to item 12. You're right. Item 12, continued enforcement order issued to Salem Country Club for the following activities: removal of living trees, grinding, grubbing stumps in buffer zone in close proximity to jurisdictional resource areas, and depositing wood chips in the buffer zones and along local riverfront woods. The property address is known as 133 Forest Street in Peabody, Mass. Our consultant unfortunately is not available, will not be here because there's no more money to pay him. And that's been the issue at this point. So I guess the question is, and this goes to Barry Fogel, how do we proceed? Will you be giving us money to pay DeRosa?
Mr. Chairman, good evening and members of the commission. Barry Fogel for Salem Country Club. We've had many communications with you about this. We had a couple of proposals from that DeRosa submitted that we thought were not only excessive but unnecessary. At this point, the club's view is that the commission has ample familiarity with the restoration plan, with the conditions on the golf course, with the information that we've submitted in a format that you're familiar with. And they don't believe that there's any need any longer for any peer review. No information has been provided to suggest that there's any amount that would be a reasonable fee for that. The last letter you got from DeRosa Environmental confirmed their view that the club was in compliance with all but 2 items. The last report that was submitted last month included the information that they recommended be provided, and Salem Country Club believes that going forward at this point, it's a monitoring program on an annual basis, and given the substantial amount of money, quite excessive, frankly, that was charged by DeRosa Environmental for prior work, they believe that there's no need and it would be inappropriate to ask them to do that any further. You've got many members of the commission who are familiar with the conditions, who've been out there and who can read the reports and keep track of what's going on.
The bigger problem that I see is that well, the good news is that the country club has indeed worked very hard to restore the damage that you've created, and that's great. From what I saw in the last report from the Salem Country Club, approximately 10% of the trees you planted are dead, and there may be one or two more that are suffering. From what I saw in a photo of plants planted by the pond to replace plants that you ripped out, I'm told that there is invasive species growing there. The problem I have is that if you are, and again, you're a country club, you know how to plant and grow grass, you should be able to grow anything. You have water, you have fertilizer, you have all the things necessary to take care of these species. And yet we've got 10% dead of trees that were just planted. And we've got plants that are not being taken care of because there's invasive growing in there. I need somebody to go and see what's going on, and if you have rectified it, that it's been fixed. And somebody, and I have no money to pay for that, and we're not qualified. You may tell me I can read a report, that's true, but I couldn't tell you one tree from the next. And I'm not an expert in that. As far as reasonableness goes, I think that you guys were unreasonable in tearing out all those trees without asking anybody anything. And you violated all kinds of laws in doing it. Telling me now that I'm unreasonable in terms of trying to see what you're doing and paying for somebody to go see it, I don't get that.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, you refer to damage being done, and we have a report in the record from over a year ago from a wildlife expert, and that there's no adverse impact on the wetland or the functions of the buffer zone. So the club did respond to your enforcement order with restoration of replanting of trees, but from a standpoint of any damage being done, there's a dispute there. But setting that aside, we have a certified arborist and licensed forester, Tom Miles, who inspects the trees and gives the club advice on how to maintain them and how to monitor the 20 trees that are regrowing substantially in those areas. And there's really, I'm not sure what you're speaking of in terms of invasives and on the bank of Set Pond, the irrigation pond. That area has been converted from when there was sod there in accordance with the proposed plan. Shrubs were planted and it's grown back. It's got very robust vegetation that stabilizes the bank and creates a barrier for and habitat for wildlife. This was a very detailed effort. It's being effectively monitored and managed by the club, and DeRosa Environmental, frankly, was doing nothing different than not adding any value to what the licensed forester and certified arborist is doing with the club. And it was just adding insult to injury to add additional cost beyond the $35,000 that they billed, which we found to be excessive, but the club paid it. It was, frankly, it just conveniently, every time they gave a scope with a cost estimate, they billed to the estimate. The most offensive piece of that most recently was the last time there was a meeting that they attended. They they billed 3.5 hours preparing for a 30-minute discussion for two people, hard pressed to understand what they were doing for 3.5 hours, but it just happened to reach the budget that they had sent in for that task. And there was never any instance where they came in under budget.
Mr. Fogel, the DeRosa is protecting the planning conservation in the city. So the Salem Country Club hires you, and Salem Country Club hires the arborist. We hire DeRosa, and the DeRosa is protecting our interests. And for you to say that there's no need for DeRosa is it doesn't make sense for you to say that we need assistance and we need our own private not attorneys, but we have our consultants, and that's and Salem Country Club is the violator, and they're the ones that need to be responsible to go through this entire process.
And they are doing that, Mr. Vivaldi. What is it that DeRosa Environmental is adding to the process at this point?
The process that we're looking for is a 5-year plan to monitor all the trees. And you agreed to that.
That's being done. My question for Mr. Vivaldi through the chair was, what is it that DeRosa Environmental is adding in terms of what benefit are they providing to the commission at this point? What information are you unable to evaluate that's been provided to you? That's the question we have. We don't think that they provide any kind of special expertise that makes it possible for you to understand the reports that are being submitted. We're down to the simple, frankly, we're down to the simple strokes here. The planting is done, and these plants are being monitored, and reports are being submitted as required. There's no more complicated activities that require peer review. There's no expertise, frankly, that we can see that they provide to you that that answers some question that you don't otherwise have the capacity to understand. That's the issue. This is not, we're years already beyond what should be done, where should things be planted. You had an arborist, Ben Staples. It's sad as can be that he passed away, but he was involved in the selection of the species of trees and was cooperating on that. That process is over. That stage is done. So that's, this is not the club resisting doing what the commission directed. This is the club has done everything the commission requested and directed.
Okay, and how do we know that how do we know that the plants are doing okay?
That's what our arborist is inspecting them. A certified arborist is writing a report.
Your arborist, okay, but he reports to you.
No, he doesn't. He's reporting to you. He gave the report to you. It was included in what we submitted. Do you believe that he's fabricating anything? I'm not calling anybody a liar. Okay. I'm just suggesting that we have the ability as a conservation commission to hire our own professionals to verify. And that's all we're trying to do. Well, if you were to get a certified arborist to give you a quote, a reasonable quote to show up on the course, spend an hour walking around and looking at the trees, and that's all of $150 to $300. We were getting quotes for $2,000 at a time for DeRosa Environmental to do that function, and that's just too much money. It's unreasonable.
Are you offering that the question then becomes reasonableness of the cost? Again, you said that before.
It's a huge issue. It has been from the beginning. And
how do you suggest we resolve it? We go out and get quotes?
Well, how long do you think if somebody, an arborist charges, anywhere between $75 and $125 an hour. If they come to the club and walk around for an hour and then take pictures and then come back and write a report, for an hour and show up on the meeting like this for that's 2.5 hours, that's $500. DeRosa Environmental was having 3 people talk about the same thing and billing $2,000 or more for each event. It became ridiculous. And I'm not suggesting that they were being inappropriate, but it got excessive. And the club has to resist that kind of overreach. And so if you're suggesting that you think you need an arborist to read our arborist's report and come
No,
look
I'm
at the
suggesting,
trees,
I'm suggesting we need somebody that's certified and qualified to go on the course and see what it looks like, not
well,
read a report.
then I would urge you to get a quote from somebody who can provide that function. If you're talking about somebody who can evaluate the condition of trees, that's fine. We're way past. The water is long over the dam about questions of whether there was any impact, whether there was any adverse impact. We reviewed that, if not 2 years ago, a year and a half. We're way past that. So we're at the point.
Except that you planted new trees and they're dead.
10 are dead. 10% are dead.
10%, and it's
10%.
27
10%. That's incredibly successful given the
It's
type
not,
of conditions.
that's not the requirement. The requirement was 100% survival.
Yeah, you imposed a very unreasonable 100%
It wasn't
requirement.
unreasonable. You guys grow grass.
No, we did. No, you imposed that. We pushed back on that and asked you to approve 75%, which is the standard typically, and you resisted that. And so the club said, what were we going to do? We were trying to get along with the commission and move along. We gave you expanded no disturb zones. We gave you granite markers. We gave you everything you asked for and $35,000 in peer review costs. So you're looking at the 90% survival. Frankly, Bill Rocco's here, but Tom Miles said more than several times to us, that's an incredible success rate for planting new trees like that.
The trees that were cut down were 100% alive. They weren't 75% or 90%. And when we say 90%, you just need to replace the 10% that died off. There's nothing wrong with that. So if you cut down 500 trees, expect to plant 550 trees.
Right. You could have planted 291 trees, which 75% survival would have come to the 231 trees that you needed to replace, but you didn't do that. I wanted 4-for-1. I wanted a 4-for-1 replacement for what you guys did. And you pushed back and you sued us. Okay. So now we got 231 trees that we wanted replaced and we wanted them to live. So if you wanted to do the 75% rule, you could have said, we're going to plant 291 trees, assuming that 70% are going to survive and you'll have 233 trees when you're done. You didn't do that. You pushed back. You fought us on that. We didn't fight you on it. You fought us.
That's not true. I'm sorry.
Yes, it is.
It is not. This has been something that's been negotiated by both sides over a long period of time. We met with you. We met with DeRosa Environmental. Ben Staples was there. There's no reason for us to be sawing sawdust over the way this was resolved. You approved by unanimous vote a restoration plan. Okay, fine. Let's not go backwards and
right.
talk
So now
about
we got to replace 27 new. You have to replace 27 trees that have died, and some of them, there are some trees that are under stress. So I don't know what's going to happen over the next several years with those trees. We need to make sure we're able to monitor and watch and find out how the trees are doing, so we can determine whether the trees need to be replaced. And why are they dying?
And that's
why are the trees dying? You guys are professionals. You know, you guys make beautiful lawns and you have landscaping and trees. Why are these trees dying? 27 trees. If I put 15 trees in my yard and 10% of them died, I would not be very happy.
I'm gonna respond to the point that's been raised, which is you're suggesting that you need someone to also look at the trees, at the planted trees, apart from the arborist and forester working for the club. That's the issue we're here to discuss. If that's the issue, the answer to the question is, we don't believe that DeRosa Environmental is the right group at this point for that. If the commission wants to get a quote from a certified arborist, and a reasonable quote for them to do a very simple task, which is to come look at the trees and confirm what Tom Miles has written, we'll consider that. But the ship has sailed on agreeing to provide any more money for DeRosa Environmental based on the long history of the manner in which they billed previously, overbilled initially. They ran $8,000 or $10,000 past the first estimate, and then we had to question their second quote, and they cut that in half, acknowledging that that was excessive. We just are disputing providing the commission with any more money for that peer reviewer. But if you believe you need a certified arborist to look at the trees that are out there, let's talk about that. There's no reason for us to sit here in June of 2024 and talk about what happened in 2023 and 2022, resolving this dispute. Both sides negotiated this. We filed an appeal only to preserve the club's rights. We never served that complaint, and we dismissed it when we talked with you about you approving the restoration plan that was heavily negotiated with you. It wasn't just submitted to you, it was negotiated with you. And so let's not waste any of our time or breath or energy talking about what happened. And let's keep moving forward like we have on making sure that this gets inspected and maintained for as required by the enforcement order, by the restoration plan that was approved. So if you believe that you can't have anyone on the commission come out and look at the trees and meet with Tom Miles and let him explain what's going on, that's okay. I could dispute that. I think you have had enough experience with wetlands and restoration and planting to look at a tree and listen to an arborist. But if you want to have a separate certified arborist give you a reasonable proposal that isn't excessive, of course the club is going to consider that. That's where we're at.
Well, I think that even if we can get past this issue with paying for an outside consultant, I think on the practical side, we need to get a schedule from you as to when you're going to replace the trees that are dead. You know, when does somebody have to be out there to watch the trees, inspect the trees going in and watch you guys plant them?
Well, no one's planting trees. The spring planting's over and the next planting season would be this fall.
So when do you want to do this? I mean, give us a schedule of what you're doing, where, you know, which trees are getting replaced and when.
Okay.
And let's to move this forward.
That's fine.
I'm not convinced that getting quotes on the outside would get us any more reasonableness in your arguments. And the issue of reasonableness, I don't understand why reasonableness would be important if you were filing an NOI or a new project. Reasonableness does not come into play with a violator.
Yes, it does. I'm sorry, it does. The peer review statute doesn't differentiate between a filing that's made under the direction that you gave for enforcement or a regular filing. In fact, if you look at your ordinance has a maximum of $15,000 in peer review fees for projects that cost up to $2 million. The club has paid $35,000 for peer review here. There absolutely is a reasonableness standard under the statute that allows you to require someone to provide funds for peer review. So again, let's be clear. We've made huge progress with this commission, the club, on additional filings that have been made in the meantime, all that other stuff of what happened 2, 3, it's all behind us. We're now in the maintenance and monitoring plan stage of things. We gave you a response to the inspection reports. We updated them to reflect what was requested. And if now you're asking, how do we manage going forward? If you want to have, like I said, I'm repeating myself, but if you have a quote from a certified arborist or forester that you want to have come look, as opposed to, you know, two of you or one of you or whomever has been out there several times looking at these trees and questioning Tom Miles, the arborist, let's talk about that. The club is looking to keep providing you with information so that you know that that replication program is being implemented. That's the goal.
Yeah,
That hasn't changed.
And that person needs to be able to follow the in-place restoration plan and its requirements that go along with the review. Okay, all these items that all these conditions of which some aren't, according to what the report in front of us, there's some that haven't been done yet. They weren't completed.
No, I'm sorry. If you, I don't know what you're looking at, but DeRosa Environmental confirmed that, except for, I think it's J and K of the conditions, are those
Yeah,
the two?
J, K, and so I'm saying J, K,
J and K.
and
Those were the two. Everything else they said was in compliance. And we gave you the report a month ago that responded to the request for photographic information about the conditions before and after, and with the spreadsheets of the conditions of the trees and so on and so forth. Everything that you've asked for was provided in the reports that have been provided, including this last update. So that's the point. You don't need a peer reviewer to be looking at things that you've already gotten confirmation were completed in compliance with the approved plan.
What about 4 years from now or 5 years from now? Don't you think that we need to know how these new trees that you planted are thriving? That we
In the
need,
manner,
it
that's
could be
true.
100% dead, and you could have, oh, we have all this green space now.
You have a requirement.
No.
Mr. Athos, you have a requirement in the approved plan that there's an annual report every November. That for 4 more years or 3, I forget the number now, but that we've met those deadlines.
You tell
And
us.
so you're going to get a report in November. I'm sorry?
Would you tell us that certain plants had died, certain trees had died?
That's what the monitoring is for.
Okay, and then you would automatically replace them.
Well,
well, I mean, what's the point?
I mean, if look, that's the question of, you know, and maybe our arborist is like, I'm not even so sure that, you know, replacing them, because some of them are we have to pick the right species. And there are 20 trees that are regrowing, frankly, quite robustly. That's summarized in the report from Tom Miles. So, you know, almost all of the 27 trees that have died are basically offset by the 20 that have regrown. There's I forget the exact species, but a bunch of those are doing incredibly well.
So if
you know, we'll
die next year, you tell us that in the annual report. So the total of trees would be 47 trees that died. I mean, we need some independent observation of what's going on out there.
Well, that's what we're talking about. I don't know why we have to go over it again.
How much you want to spend for that? How much you think is a fair price for you to pay for us to be able to monitor the thriving of these trees that you were planting?
If I had a client that wanted an arborist to inspect a bunch of trees at the golf course, I would say, give me a proposal. If they told me that for $75 or $100 an hour, whatever their rate is, they would come out. It takes an hour at most to drive the course. We went out with Tom Miles. It took us an hour, maybe a few minutes more, to go through each area. And you walk through those areas, A through K, you can see what's alive and you can see what wasn't. He went back and wrote a report. It probably took him an hour to do that. So now we're up to 2 hours. Then if he comes to, I'm answering your question. I'm answering your question. And so, I'm sorry?
You're talking about DeRosa.
No, I'm talking about any consultant. No, I'm not. DeRosa never did it that way. We'd get 3 people from DeRosa showing up, and one of them would be off talking on a cell phone, and then we'd get billed for the 3 hours they spent talking afterwards. I'm sorry, but the bills show differently. And so what I'm trying to tell you is that a legitimate evaluation should take an hour to write a report, 2 hours to come to a meeting. Even if it's 3 hours, you're talking $225 to $300, not $2,000.
But what do you think is a reasonable price for the city to monitor
I
the
just gave you that answer.
$200 a year?
$300 for each time they come visit and write a report. Yes, that's what the club believes is a reasonable amount. But I'd like to see a quote from somebody. I'm just saying, I'm telling you what I would expect.
Typist to type up the paperwork for $300.
No,
I think
no,
we're beating a
no.
dead horse.
No,
Right?
that doesn't
Move
happen.
on.
It doesn't toss that. I'm sorry.
Well,
I work with a lot of consultants. I work with we had a report submitted by a wetland scientist who gave you the inspection report on the replicated wetland on hole number 7 under the 6-7 project. Bill Rocco just got an invoice. He was an hour and a half to do the inspection and write the report. It was like
Through the chair.
$300.
Through the chair.
Go ahead.
I don't want to keep I'm not doing this over and over and over again. I'm going to call 3 consultants. I'm going to get 3 hourly rates. Barry, I got to tell you, it's pretty insulting for you to say that somebody's going to go up there and write a report and all it's going to cost is $200. I'm going to get 3 prices. I'm going to submit them to you. How's that? It's not going to be that hard to do. But for you to say it's only $100 or $200 to do that, they have to drive there. They have to inspect the trees. You can say it's only an hour. I highly doubt it.
Well,
I'm done. I don't want to talk about this anymore. I'll get you some prices.
Good.
And you go from there.
That would be great.
Okay.
Through the chair, through the chair, so why don't I talk to the mayor tomorrow about finding money for the city to finish the DeRosa review for this year so that we can come back in July. And I guess the city's gonna have to pay for that because I do think it's important that DeRosa does this, at least this next one. And then it sounds like Bruce, if you need help from me, let me know tomorrow. If you have some names you want to give me, I also can call people with you if that's easier for you. I know you're busy. So why don't we just do that? Because again, I don't want to like sit here and fight either. So I will talk to the mayor tomorrow, find that money and confirm that I can find it. And then once I confirm that we have the money to go ahead and pay DeRosa, hopefully we'll be at the July 31 meeting to discuss that. And then we'll go from there with these arborist scopes of work. Does that sound like a plan?
Move to continue.
Yeah.
But is that acceptable, Barry?
Well, we have nothing to say about the city paying money to somebody. That's your business.
I'm talking about getting quotes.
Well, that was what the process under Chapter 40 is, that you do get quotes, I would think, when you're trying to do peer review and you find somebody, if you have to, but the scope of what it is you want them to do, frankly, as I think Mr. Comack was saying, the idea would be to visit the site, look at the trees, write a report and show up here for 30 minutes and tell you what they think. We were, by the way, I mean, just to add to the complaint pile, we were getting copies of the DeRosa reports the day of or the day before the meetings. So for all that money, we weren't even given an opportunity to see them far enough in advance to have an opinion. But no, I think if you're asking at this point for peer review for specific services to do arborists or forestry evaluation of the trees, That makes sense. That, that's something I think I can recommend and that Bill Rocco can accept. If it, I don't know exactly what their hourly rate's gonna be, and I'm not suggesting, Mr. Comack, it's $200, but I'm saying it's several $100s, not several $1,000s. That's the main point. It's an order of magnitude issue.
Yeah, through the chair, the peer review reports I've seen for like scope of work for like engineers, most engineers don't even show up to a meeting for under $300.
This isn't engineering.
So I know, but they're
Yeah,
on
this
they're
isn't
on they're
engineering.
in my opinion, they're a professional and they're along the same line. So I mean, most people, I mean, I imagine you're getting paid pretty hefty for being here tonight. But regardless, I say we move on. I'm gonna go ahead, talk to the mayor,
Take a
try
shot, why
to
don't
talk
you?
to what?
You didn't need to say that.
Well,
What?
I mean, you're a professional. Michael DeRosa is a professional as well, and he gets paid more than $200 an hour.
Yeah, but I don't have two associates sitting with me for 3.5 hours before this meeting.
Okay, I'm sorry if I offended you.
Well,
I
I
just
mean,
I
really,
know
that's
I
not
worked for
necessary.
attorneys.
I'm-
I worked for attorneys for many years, and I know all about like billable hours and all that stuff. But I'm not it. I respect you entirely, Attorney Fogel. So I don't want you to be upset about that comment. But I know how much attorneys make. So that motion was made by Mr. Athos, seconded by.
By Michael Vivaldi.
All right, I am going to do a roll call, but I cannot, the alternates cannot vote on this. Roll call, Chairman Lazaris.
We're voting to continue, correct?
July 31st.
Till July 31st.
That's your next meeting, July 31st? Okay,
Yes.
all right.
Vice Chairman Rizzo,
Yes.
Secretary Vivaldi,
Yes.
Commissioner Comack,
Yes.
and Commissioner Athos.
Arthur.
You're muted, Arthur.
There he is.
Oh, yes. I muted for the answer, yeah.
I will let everyone know about my findings if I find money and if DeRosa will be completing the review this year.
Thank you.
And thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
This is what time is it? It's 10 o'clock, huh? Okay.
Let's go through this quick, Stu.
What?
Let's go through this quick.
Quick. Next part is minor permits, trees, and other. Minor permit request at 6 Rutledge Road. Old deck rotting, placed existing deck frame, install 7 sonotubes. 1 day earthwork digging, new frame, deck flooring. This was approved on 4/18/20 this year. Has that been done? Do you know, Lucia? It's all finished? I'm sorry?
6 Rutledge, I'm sure it's probably been done. I didn't ask anyone to follow up with me, or at least that one.
Okay.
But I can find out.
All right, the next one is 28 Whitney Drive.
Don't we need to just give an approval? Isn't that why it's on the agenda?
Move to
I'm
approve.
sorry, what?
Did you guys want to approve them all together?
Yes.
Or-
Yeah,
Okay.
I was going to just read them off and see if the work was done, that's all.
Okay.
Second one was minor permit request, 28 Whitney Drive, second story addition, work on existing 3-season porch, no stockpiling or staging allowed. This was approved May 9th of this year. I don't know where it's at in terms of work. Minor permit request, 23 Andover Street, sonotubes for handicap ramp, deck, ingress, egress works approved on 5/21. Do we need a roll call on approving these? I don't think so. These were approved.
You do need a roll call to approve them. I approved them. I'm not the commission. You guys have to ratify
All
the
right.
approval. And if you don't approve them and you say, Lucia, you're wrong, this, 20 Whitney Drive, they should have filed an RDA, you're wrong. Then then you wouldn't approve it and I would go back and tell them to file an after the fact. So you still, I don't just to get, I don't,
Okay.
I
Can
can't
we
just
get
act
a-
on this by myself. I'm acting on your behalf and you guys have to ratify.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll
right.
call.
That was
Can
made
I,
by
can I
Mr.
just make every suggestion in the future too then? So that maybe these minor permits that something be added that they're outside the buffer zone or the 50 foot, 100 foot? Is that what we're all assuming, right?
No, if they're outside of the buffer zone, I don't need to do anything to them. These are
Right.
like minor permits. There's a section in the regulations under the Wetlands Protection
Right.
Act. I think it's 10 point, it's either 0.5 or 2, and there's things that are considered minor, and you have to go down the list and you find the ones that are minor. And these are ones that, in my opinion, are minor.
I
And they
agree
don't
with you. I
require
agree
a
with you.
full-blown.
I agree. I just thought maybe you could add like that they were 60 feet from the wetlands or something like that. I don't know. But I make a motion to approve these 3 minor permits.
Second.
Roll call.
It was already made by Mr. Athis, seconded by Mr. Rizzo. There was already a roll call on it. Chairman Lazaris,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Rizzo,
Yes.
Secretary Vivaldi,
Yes.
Commissioner Comack,
Yeah.
Commissioner Athis,
Yes.
Commissioner Cassidy,
Yes.
and Commissioner Harrop. Jamie, you're muted.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes. All right. And on to minutes, April 10th and May 8th should have both should have been emailed out.
Move to approve.
Any
Second.
comments on the minutes or motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
I'll second.
Who
Roll
made
call.
the second?
It was Brian.
I actually don't think he can because he wasn't here in April, so he can't really approve that. I don't think he was on the board yet.
I was not. You are correct, Lucia.
All second minutes.
Thank you. Roll
Okay.
call.
Yep, Chairman, that made by Mr. Athis, seconded by Mr. Vivaldi. Roll call, Chairman Lazaris,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Rizzo,
Yes.
Secretary Vivaldi,
Yes.
Commissioner Comack,
Yes.
Commissioner Athis.
Yes.
All right, so that passes 5-0 with no alternates. And before we go, you guys, I did actually make an oops on 24.5 North Central Street. I believe Jamie seconded the continuance, and this started far before she was on the board, so we actually need to get that if God forbid something happened, we should redo this roll call. And you guys don't have to, but I just think from a legal standpoint, we might want to redo that continuance.
What was the specific item?
It was a roll call to continue 24.5 North Central Street, and Jamie made the second, but technically technically neither of them should have voted on that because they weren't here for all of the conversation. So we actually need to redo that vote without the alternates.
So who made the motion?
It was made by Arthur.
And so I'll second it. I'll second the 24.5, a continuation for 24.5 Northwest Central.
All right, and I'm gonna do another roll call without the alternates this time. I'm sorry, I should have caught that. Chairman Lazaris.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Rizzo.
Yes.
Secretary Vivaldi.
Yes.
Commissioner Comack.
Yes.
And Commissioner Athis.
Yes.
Okay, so that
Anybody
passes.
else? Does anybody
5.
have any other comments before we go? Hearing none, I need a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
I'll second it.
Roll call.
Yep, that motion was made by Mr. Athos, seconded by Mr. Cassidy. Roll call, Chairman Lazaris,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Rizzo,
Yes.
Secretary Vivaldi,
Yes.
Commissioner Comac,
Yes.
Commissioner Athos,
Yes.
Commissioner Cassidy,
Yes.
and Commissioner Harrop.
Yes.
All right, so our meeting adjourns at 10:06 p.m. Thank you, everybody.
Go Celtics. Go green.
Go Celtics.
Celtics.
All right.
PAT.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Have a good night.